Good evening and welcome to the Wednesday, May 21st, 2014 meeting of the Falmouth Conservation Commission. First item on the agenda are minutes for May 14th, which we'll vote. We're going to have those of you to my right, we're going to have a special meeting on Wednesday morning. We'll vote minutes and we'll vote orders.
Next Wednesday.
Oh, yes.
Next Wednesday.
Next Wednesday.
Right, because Mario couldn't come tonight.
28th.
Okay, we can do that.
We'll figure it out.
Okay. Next item is other business. Bryson Fairs, is that right? Eagle Scout project path at Terhune Drive parcel. Tyson, would you like to come up? Jen, would you have any comments? Okay, Tyson? Ryson, sorry, Ryson. So here's what you have to do. You have to take a hold of that microphone.
Take hold of the microphone, all right.
Right, and tell us all who you are first.
Okay. So I'm Ryson Ferris, and I'm currently a Life Scout in Troop 40 Falmouth. I'm working towards my Eagle Scout project, and my proposal for this project, I don't know if you want me to have this facing them or you guys, or...
No, you're presenting the proposal to us, but they all have
Okay.
interest, or many of them have interest in it.
All right.
So can everybody see the project? Okay.
And so my proposal was to use the parcel of land purchased by the Conservation Commission in, I believe, 2001, as a passive recreation park. The original plans were drawn up by Stephen Simpson, and they involved two pathways, one coming from Palmer Ave and Terhune, and one coming from the bike path. I revised the plan slightly in order to make it so that only the path coming from the bike path and down back onto the bike path will be the path that is constructed. There is also going to be granite slab benching going along the terrace bowl. I've talked to Ed Gross of the Bikeways Committee regarding possible donors for this. He has a list of possible donors. He couldn't make it tonight though because he's in Philadelphia. The plan also involves bike racks and signage along the, along the left-hand side of the pathway, right on the bike path for easy access. I'd also like to possibly clean up the brush area that divides the bike path from the parcel, removing brush, dead trees, invasive species, in order to kind of still leave a certain natural barrier there, as well as, making it more visible from the bike path. The pathway will most likely be stone dust with vinyl siding in order to keep it in there, 6 feet wide. We will have to dig 4 to 6 inches down into the soil in order to construct the pathway. Any questions?
And you're ready to answer questions, right?
Definitely.
Okay.
Definitely.
Jen?
Yes, Madam Chairman, Bryson, you met out there the other day with the conservation agent, Mark Kasperzak, to
Yes.
review the location of your path.
Yep.
Do you want to tell the board about any modifications that were made in the location and why?
The only thing was, so I don't have a certain set area for the entrance and exit to the path, but he moved it slightly over further to the right just because there are beech trees in the area, and moving the path over would put it in the way of some invasive species that would need to be removed.
You mean be removed as opposed to removing natural vegetation?
Yes.
Where the flagging was?
Yes.
Yep. Okay. No, Madam Chairman, I don't have any other
Any further questions?
The parcel was purchased in 2002 with land bank money under the land bank criteria. It was to be kept open space and used for passive recreation, and I do believe this falls into the realm of passive recreation.
Okay, and just so the audience understands, the process is, we'll discuss it, and people might have suggestions and modifications. We'll give people in the audience an opportunity to make comments. We may have some modifications towards the end, and then what our role will be is we will make a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen. And then I understand you've already gone ahead and scheduled
Yes.
a time before the Board of Selectmen, which is good. Okay, Mike, any questions?
The area is relatively flat?
The area where I'm building the path is relatively flat, but the entire parcel is kind of shaped like a bathtub almost, just because it was.
Well, it was a bathtub because there was a foundation that was going to be put there.
Yeah.
My concern was that during construction, you may have runoff carrying silt to other areas. So if you're taking a look at control of that erosion or potential erosion,
I have not.
you may hear something from us about that, but that's okay.
Definitely. I'm
No other
open
questions?
to any suggestions and improvements that you guys have to offer. Not an expert on this stuff, but definitely anything you guys say will help.
You are closer to an expert than you were when you started.
Yes.
Well, I'll ask one of the other experts. Russ?
I have no questions. I think you did a great job. Nice presentation.
Thank you.
Tom?
It's always exciting to see young people who are motivated. I think this is going to be a great learning experience. You're going to find out how wonderful it is to try to manage a project, and that's good for you. Inviting this is also on public TV, so that anybody that is interested in helping along with this, I'm sure that they could contact your scout leader and such, and be helpful with this. This is a good project. Mike did bring up a good point about just the site management on that, and I don't foresee any issue with what you're doing, but learning how the process is and just being in charge and in control of that, knowing, as the agent reviewed the site with you, these are all learning points for you, and that's awesome. I'm very pleased for that.
Courtney?
No questions. It's a nice project.
Okay, feel free, as you're working on the project, to contact the Conservation Department, who would be happy to help you with any issues that come along.
Well,
Jen.
Madam Chairman, I was going to comment. Bryson, you had heard from the board, and you had mentioned in your presentation about invasive removal.
Yes.
So what we're going to do is we'll condition the project, so when you get to the stage about the stage of your invasive removal, we'll have you kind of write up what invasive species are there and what the techniques are that you're going to use to remove those.
Okay.
And then we'll set up a time where we can go and work with you to make sure that it's being done properly.
Okay.
And you gotta get the root systems in some of these things, and it depends on what species you have out there. Okay?
All right.
So you'll get a letter from us giving you a few conditions to follow while you're going forward, and we'll forward that to the Board of Selectmen for you.
Okay.
Okay, are there any questions or comments or suggestions from the audience? Yeah, you. Virginia.
Bryson, could you put the mic back up for them to use?
Of course.
Thank you.
Virginia Valiela, I'm here tonight speaking for myself because I only learned about this project today, and congratulations on working on such a project like this and contributing to the town. I'm very supportive of that. I'm wearing several hats, and I'm going to make comments in relation to those. The first hat was I was selectman, and I was instrumental in getting this parcel purchased by the town because it's the entrance to the town. And it was actually going to be a medical building, 2.5 stories high, and so we got it to be a green space. Next to the bike path, clearly an amenity for the town and a nice way for the town to enter. The DPW maintains it, and so what your project is about improving it, and I want to sort of make that a little more nuanced, and so I'm going to make a few suggestions. My second hat is as a member of the Water Quality Management Committee. The more bushes and trees and green space that we can have in this town, the better it is in terms of absorbing atmospheric nitrogen, and also in terms of absorbing stormwater, because through climate change, we're getting a lot more torrential downpours. So drainage, as was brought up by Mr. Powers, is a very important thing. I walked the site today, and you've described one path that comes off the bike path, sort of runs parallel to it and goes back on, but out in the field, you also have a second path that has been staked with little white flags.
Oh, that's the, those are the benches.
Those are benches?
Yes.
Okay, they're labeled path, but, okay. So there is no path there?
No.
Okay, wonderful, because I do not think there should be a path that goes downhill towards the road and helps with runoff. You want to keep it contained on the site, and the site is, it's not quite a bathtub, it has a broad rim around it, but it will contain water very nicely if you leave that topography the way it is. The cuts in the wall, I'm going to make a suggestion that the Conservation Commission consider making only one cut rather than two. I think the idea of having people have benches to come and rest, having been wherever they are with their families up and down the bike path, is very good. And there's one established sort of break in the wall already, so there's just only one stone left, barely. But the rest of the wall is fairly intact. And so, I mean, this doesn't have to be speed on, speed off. So you might think about just having a path that comes into the area, benches where you can sit, but I don't know that you necessarily have to cut the wall twice. So I make that as a suggestion. Originally, in the Stimson-Saline plan, there were picnic benches. And again, that hasn't been mentioned tonight, and I just want to make sure, because I don't think that's a good idea. Good, okay, off the table. It's going to create a lot of litter and hanging around. What you really want is a place to rest off the bike path. And then lastly, I was going to mention the beech tree, but again, if you don't make that second cut, the beech tree is not affected, and the invasive species will clearly be taken care of wherever they may be. Habitat is good. Birds like brushy areas, and so invasive species come out, but that'll leave room for all the other species. So those are my suggestions for the plan, and I thank you.
Okay, thanks, Virginia.
Madam Chairman, I just have one clarification. I assume you're not putting your picnic tables in?
No.
Okay.
Nancy?
Nancy Hayward, Precinct 5. I'm very sympathetic toward Eagle projects. Both our sons were Eagle Scouts and had Eagle projects. I am involved in this because someone, a neighbor who abuts this property, called me today because someone had given her my name as someone who was interested in historical things. This is the historic district. This property is in the historic district, and this property is abutted by an historic house, and Virginia Valiella has touched on several points that I was going to touch on. She has suggested that there be only one break in the wall. I walked the property today also. I don't know, two places were marked, and the place that had the more natural break was the place that was closest to the property that abuts this lot. And the neighbor, one of the things the neighbor was concerned about was having all the vegetation removed. I know the Conservation Commission appreciates the use of brush by birds and other animals, and that's something that should be minimized. I was not quite sure what was going on because there was a tree that was down and was just totally loaded with bittersweet as far as I can tell, and we know that bittersweet needs to be removed. I guess I would have suggested that I also wanted to look at the wall to see if I am on the Falmouth Historical Commission. I am speaking strictly for myself. I wanted to see what the wall was like. We do not have any walls listed, and I don't know, this is probably a fairly old wall, but I don't know that it has any. Walls are always significant. The railroad came in 1872, and this is the old rail bed here. But I myself, if I were considering this, keeping the neighbor in mind, would have wanted the break through the wall off the bike path to be more over toward Terhune. I do know that on Chase Road, where there's conservation land at the end of the road, a neighbor there, the pathway, the old pathway, was by a vernal pond that I enjoyed looking at, but because a neighbor there found it was noisy, the path through that land was rerouted. So I think if the path is closer to a house, it may be noisier for people living in the house. Bicyclists talk as well as ride bicycles.
Yeah, we won't make general comments about bicyclists, but sometimes there are big groups of cyclists.
Yes,
Which
there
may be
are.
more exuberant than others, and we'll
And I
certainly
think-
take, I think
minimizing the civilized aspect of this is worthwhile.
right, I
the
think,
less-
at
less
this
the
point,
better.
I think what I'm gonna suggest is, maybe I'll meet with you and Jen again, before you go before the Board of Selectmen, and we may suggest some modifications.
All right, may I also point out that, just for future reference, the wall, as far as I can see, the stone wall goes about up to probably a third of the way down the parcel and is stopped by a very large beech tree. From there on, the wall is either very, very disheveled or non-existent.
So if we were to suggest just one opening closer to Terhune, that would be feasible?
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Yes?
I have a few questions for Ryson, but I also would like to make a statement.
Okay, but you know what you have to do? You have to play by the same rules as everyone else. You have to come up,
But I want to talk to him.
you have to speak, well, you could talk to him if it's not in the public comment, but if you want to make a public comment, you have to tell us who you are,
Okay.
and you have to speak into
Sorry.
the microphone.
Okay, I'm Paulette Nolan, and I'm the abutter to the property. And I met Ryson the other day. I had no knowledge about what was going on next door. And just a few things I wanted to comment with Ryson about. He had no plan when we talked on, was it Monday? You had no plan. You had not drawn up a plan.
Oh, I had the plan, it just was not with me.
Okay, well, I didn't get to see the plan. Oh, but basically, this is the one I have. This is a Stimson plan.
Yes.
Okay, all right. We had talked about the granite benches, and I thought there was going to be a path down to the granite benches, so then the people are going to be walking on the grass to get to the granite benches?
Yes.
Okay, and when did you decide you didn't want to do the picnic tables?
Right at the very beginning, basically, because I thought it would just create unnecessary confusion with
But
use, I
we
guess.
spoke about picnic tables, and I told you how I didn't like to have them there because I thought that it was going to create trash. Okay.
Well, at any rate, picnic
Anyway.
tables are off.
Okay, so there's no picnic tables. Okay. I had done a few pages for people to know about the real history of the property next door, And I thought it might be good for some of you, because I've been there for 30 years.
Okay,
All right?
and Tyson might like a copy.
Rice.
Ryson, sorry.
Thank you.
There is a name Tyson, isn't there?
Can I
Yes.
have,
Courtney?
Thank you.
And also,
Could you
I
give,
did call up
did you get a
Steve-
copy? Yeah,
I got
she,
one more.
okay. Did you get a copy?
I did walk down to, oh, sorry, I gotta give you this stuff. This is their picture of how they want. That's the plan.
That's on that file.
I went down to Depot Avenue today, and of course, Steve Stimson, architect, is not there. Anyway, I called him up, and he gave me a PDF of the plans. But I have some concerns about cutting through the old stone wall, and about removing the brush and the plants that have housing for animals. Right now, where the brush is, I know there's a family of bobwhites. I also have seen rabbits, a turkey, a fox, and a coyote over there. So I know that they like that parcel the way it is, the animals. All right. The entrance and exits off of Palmer Avenue, I don't know if you're doing that
There aren't
now.
any. That's
Well-
off the table.
yeah, that's,
I
It's-
brought up a narrative for the plan, actually. Doesn't involve any of the, what was those, the
Ryson.
So there's not an entrance there?
No,
No, that pathway is going to be.
Ryson is gonna give us a modified plan showing only one opening towards,
So you're saying there's only going to be
towards Terhune.
one opening?
That leads in, they're gonna be bike racks, and they're gonna be,
If possible,
benches.
I'd like to, ideally, I'd like to stick with the opening and opening on the other side, just because I think it would be a lot easier for bicyclists to manage, so they wouldn't have to, turn their bikes around on a narrow, fairly.
You know what?
pathway.
I've probably cycled 50,000 miles, and a cyclist should be able to manage their bike like that.
But again, this is families and children,
Well, then, it's time for them to learn.
all right?
If they were coming from the north, they wouldn't have to do that. They could come right into the park. So you're just saying, coming from the south, that you want the entrance there? So-
Yeah.
Okay, all right, all right. So we don't have to talk about the trash then, but as I said on Monday, we were talking about the picnic tables. I feel having the park there as it is better than having it with memorial benches. And if you look at that drawing, what Simpson drew up, it really looks like a suburb, not a town of Falmouth. I like to keep it more Cape Cod. As far as having a park there, though, we have Goodwill Park. If you walk only to Depot Avenue, there's the kiosk and there's benches, and you just walk a little farther, and there's a toilet facility and more picnic tables. So I don't understand why we can't just leave the land as it is, instead of having anything. The other thing is, when this parcel was built, it was bought so there would be less congestion. And when I talked to Ryson about this on Monday, he said, people can come and park across the street at the bagel shop or at the bank and have a picnic. Well, now, we're not going to have picnic tables, but come over to the property and sit and hang out. I feel that having these benches and this park-like atmosphere, and you mentioned a kiosk, you wanted a kiosk.
No, you mentioned the kiosk, I believe.
Well, it's in that thing, Dr. Gross mentioned the kiosk to me. The plan is basically a lot like Dr.
Right, but I
Gross's.
think it's been scaled down considerably, and I think some of the testimony that we've heard tonight, I think people, and I can tell you a number of people here are interested in bird watching. So I think I'm happy to walk the area with you,
Uh-huh.
and I think you could have a lovely place where you had a single entrance, people could put their bikes on the rack, they could sit down for a while, get out of the sun, and still have a natural area there.
Would the racks be at the Terhune Drive exit or entrance? So we'd move them? It
Well,
would
that may be the only entrance.
Right. Well, he had wanted to have the racks at the other end.
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll take, I know your concern.
Okay. All
If
right.
possible, just throwing out ideas here now. If we do have a single entrance, is it possible to create a loop around the benches with the pathway in order so people can ride?
Well, they shouldn't be riding in the park.
That's true.
They should be pushing their bikes in the park. But there, I mean, there is the potential to have a loop around with some, except for the fact that it drops down there.
I'm confused, though. Ryson told me there would be no bicycles
Ryson?
in the park.
You come up right now and give me your telephone number.
Telephone number?
I will call you. We'll take a field trip out there,
Okay.
okay? And we'll take Ms. Nolan.
Yes?
We'll take Ms. Nolan's concerns.
And as far as the granite benches, if you're walking on the grass to get to the granite benches, aren't all the grass going to be dead if we don't make paths to the granite benches?
If I may, this is a project that's being proposed that will have occasional use. This is not going to be, as you described yourself, there are the areas where people will stop. Not everyone is going to stop at Terhune mandatorily. It's going to be something that is not going to be a grandiose entrance and just draw your eye to it. I would suspect that most people would ride by it, and that the occasional people that do see it would take an opportunity to, I know, I like sitting and watching the traffic, to be honest with you. You know, I get a kick out of seeing what that intersection does. The scale of this has been cut back. Ryson, I hope you appreciate the process. This is welcome to the world. This is great to get your feet wet like this. These are the hurdles that are going to be in front of you, which I know you're going to cross, and you're going to be successful in this. I think that this is a nice door that we just passed through. We have information about contacting him and going to the site and reviewing this.
Okay.
I think that we can accomplish a nice little facet and a diamond that we call that intersection. I think that's something we can all accomplish.
And Ryson will have a similar but slightly modified plan when he comes before the Board of Selectmen on June 2nd.
If I may add one more thing, there is already an entrance over near where the proposed bike racks were originally supposed to be. It seems to be fairly well used. It's the entrance that we used when we moved to the site, I believe. It's already been cleared out. I believe that you contacted DPW regarding further accessibility. I feel like it would be a fair compromise to remain with the original revised plan, which would be two entrances, simply moving these bike racks and the signage and this kind of area where you can park your bikes and
To the north.
to the, yes, exactly.
Okay, well, I'll see how my fellow commissioners feel about that, but we appreciate you coming in
Okay.
with your concerns.
All right. So as I'm to understand it now, you want to have the entrance at the corner of Terhune, and that's where the bike path, the bike racks will go.
And keep the remaining entrance at the south end.
Why would we want to do that?
It's already there.
No, it's basically a fallen down wall.
Well, I believe.
So then we'd still be having two entrances, and I don't think we need
Well,
two
Did
entrances.
you contact DPW regarding more?
Excuse me. Are there any comments
All
on
right,
the,
thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Comments on the board before I have a meeting with Ryson at the site? Do you have any concerns one way or the other about one or two entrances? The major entrance would be to the north, that's where the bike racks would be.
Yes.
Did Mrs. Valiano want to Did she mention cutting down the amount of benches? Did you?
No, I didn't pass judgment on the benches.
Okay.
She just didn't want paths to the benches.
Yeah, I don't think you need paths.
Yeah, we don't think so. It's not proposed.
May I say one more thing, please?
What, no, not yet.
But
Comments on
No comment.
one or, no comments?
I don't mind if there's two, myself, I don't mind that. I think that it's a,
For traffic flow.
yeah, I think, well, form follows function.
Yeah, I don't know.
And I think that that's something that could be,
I mean, I could see.
if you take the bike rack and put it to the north, I think it's just traversing. It's not, no one's gonna be staying at that other entrance. So I don't have a problem with two.
Me neither.
You want to make one more comment?
One more comment.
All right.
About the two entrances, Ryson wanted to put an entrance nearest me with the bike rack.
No, bike racks aren't going to be there. They're going to be in the north.
Okay. When that was going to happen, then Ryson made a thing, but how are we going to, I said something about having the entrance the other way, and Mark that was there, one of the main concerns, they didn't want bikes going into that piece of property. They just wanted foot traffic. That's what Mark said. And Ryson said it's going to be hard because if they're coming in one entrance and there's a bike path, they're not going to want to go down to the other entrance and put the bike path there and walk in. Or if they were coming from Woods Hole Way, they're going to want to, if there's two entrances, they're going to want to walk down the bike path with their bike into that area. So that's why I think only one entrance is good.
It may be, thank you.
Okay,
We have your
okay.
opinion.
Okay.
Are there any other comments? Patty?
I'm Pat Johnson. I live on Wild Harbor Road. I offered to help Ryson with his Eagle project. He approached me, Bikeways Committee meeting quite a while ago. And I offered to just help him, and I told him, the process that he'd have to go through, which he is doing, and I think Tom has given him a lot of support. And the Eagle project is a positive thing for both the town and for Ryson. So I would like to speak in support of his project.
Yeah,
And
and
I'm
I
sure
think-
you're going to work it out.
I think, oh, absolutely. I mean, I think,
Great.
I think as
Yeah.
the board is definitely in support, it's the details, and it's, we all know that
Yes.
the devil is in the details, and we want to make sure we get those details correct.
And you will.
Yeah. Mike?
Thank you, Michael Duffney. I'm one of the leaders in the troop that Ryson belongs to, and I just appreciate your consideration here tonight for him to learn the process. And obviously, I support the project, and with your help, I'm sure he's going to do a great job. We are going to be there to support him. It's his project, and he's going to run it and so forth. But thanks again. The big part of the Eagle project is also to come before a board like this here and to go through the process. So
Right, and he doesn't seem nervous at all.
No,
He
he
seems
doesn't.
less nervous than most of the people coming before.
I agree. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. So, are there any other questions, comments? Yes.
Ryson, you've joined a long list of applicants who found it's more difficult than you thought.
And so, could we have a motion on the table to approve to recommend to the selectmen that we approve the project with a few modifications to be based on working with staff, and I'll have a field trip with Ryson.
So
We'll look
move.
over some of these issues.
Well spoken. So move.
And second,
Okay, motion in 2 seconds. Final comments? All in favor of the motion on the table, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous, so moved. Thanks, Ryson.
thank you, Ryson.
Good job.
finished up your thing.
Madam Chairman?
You're most welcome. Have a good night.
Yep,
Enjoy this.
I'll call you. We'll take a field trip.
Anytime after 5:30 on this Saturday and Sunday.
Oh, okay, good.
Thank you so much.
Wait to meet you.
Okay. Just want to get the calendar. Okay. Okay, next item on the agenda, actually, Jen, as you go by, would you, Ryson, we'll give you another job. See all the people who are making noise? Would you ask them to move further away? Thank you. See, I wish I had him here at every meeting. Okay, next item, Oyster Pond Environmental Trust to discuss the land grant application for acquisition of conservation restriction on 22 acres located on Oyster Pond.
Yes,
Wendy?
yes,
Good
hi.
evening.
I am Wendy Bissler. I am the Executive Director of Oyster Pond Environmental Trust, or OPET, which is the acronym. And I will just briefly give you a rundown again about what this project's all about. Oyster Pond, or OPET, we already own 7.5 acres here on the shores of the Oyster Pond. Spore Gardens is to the south of the land. Just to orient you, this is Oyster Pond, this is Woods Hole Road, this is Oyster Pond Road, and this is Fells Road. And so the OPET is going to be purchasing nearly 22 acres of land divided between 5 parcels, kind of right in the middle of this residential area. And it's going to link up these 2 already conservation lands, and it's going to create 34 acres of contiguous open space in this part of town. There's a wetland system here. Unfortunately, because it's shaded, it's kind of hard to see the wetlands, but there's a wetland system here that moves through this property of
Those-
OPET's. And
Those
it
of us who
drains-
are on the board long enough remember that wetland system.
yes. And so it drains into Oyster Pond. It's the only surface water source to the pond. All the rest of the pond is fed by groundwater. And there's also what we now know are 2 vernal pools on the property. Wood frogs have been found in this pond, and just recently yellow spotted salamander
salamanders.
egg masses were seen here. So we weren't sure before, but we now know that there are 2 vernal pools on the property. So the reason why we're here today is because of the land grant application and the way the land grant, which stands for Local Acquisition for Natural Diversity, how it works is the town is actually the applicant of the grant, but OPET, in conjunction with the Compact of Cape Cod, we're actually doing all the work for you. So we're actually filling out the grant application, but the town is actually the applicant for the grant. And how it works is you've actually kind of done something like this before. The Bartholomew property, I believe, was a land grant. And it's very similar to the park grant that was used for T-Ticket Park. So what happens is the town will purchase the conservation restriction from OPET. You'll pay $800,000 for it. The land grant will then reimburse the town 50% of the $800,000 or $400,000. And the reason, and this is the maximum award that was given under the land grant, and that's how we came up with the value of the conservation restriction at $800,000 in the application for the land grant. The actual value of the conservation restriction on this land is actually much higher than that. We've already had one appraisal come in, and it says it's worth $1.3 million for all these properties, and we have a second one that's in process. It's not complete yet, but I've got a number from the appraiser today, and it's estimated between 1.5 and 1.8 million. So we still have, it's worth a lot more than the 800,000. So the town is already, so the town will be purchasing this with it's 800,000, but you already have 250,000 from the community preservation funds that was granted at the special town meeting on April 8th. You'll get the 400,000 from reimbursement from the land grant. And to make up that $150,000 difference, OPET's actually going to give the town $150,000, and then you'll turn around and give us $800,000. And I guess this is very common, this happens all the time, and it's because the town wasn't able, the CPC didn't have funds to put forward $400,000, they only had $250,000 to put forward for that. So that's how that money's gonna work. I guess the main thing, so we're coming to you to ask for the signature on the letter that's going to, well, first, the Concom to sign the application, and then the chair to sign the letter that accompanies the application. And I guess the other thing to talk about is the conservation restriction, which we have a draft that has to accompany the application. But again, I want to emphasize this is just a draft. It will probably go through other changes. The way it works is even though it goes up with the application, the state doesn't actually start looking at it until after they know that the grant has been awarded. And at that time, they'll look at it, and then it will probably go through some more changes at that point. And so it's pretty standard boilerplate, what's in the CR. We added a couple of things in there, OPET did. One was we're going to allow biking on the pathway that connects. There's a pathway here, it's kind of an ancient way that connects Ransom Road and Fells Road. It's very heavily used by the neighborhood for people to access the bike path. I know a lot of people who work at Sea Education at the Woods Hole Research Center, they also use this access to bike to work and also to reach the bike path. So we're going to allow biking on just this pathway. The other thing is we're going to allow science activities on this property because for Woods Hole had requested this, and so we added that in to the CR. I know in the CR, I know the town's very concerned about the monitoring, who's going to monitor the property. As CR requires once a year that the grantee walk the property to make sure that the CR is being adhered to. I know the town doesn't have the employee power to able to go out and do that, but you'll note in the language on page 8, it says that the grantee and its representatives, that's at the bottom of page 8, can do this. And so I actually have a call in with Jessica Rittenauer of the 300 committee. I'm sure there's a way that we can work out some kind of arrangement to have a third party be responsible for this monitoring since the town isn't able to do it. And that's something we can work out. Again, this is a draft. You know, we have time to fit this kind of language in. I also want you to be aware that OPET's also applying for a federal grant called the National Coastal Wetlands Conservation Program. If we are awarded that we're applying for $500,000. If we do receive that, the state will also hold an interest in the conservation restriction, and so the town and the State Department of Conservation and Recreation would actually share an undivided interest on the perpetual conservation restriction. And what would happen then, this CR would have language included in it that would work out what would happen if the two parties needed to resolve if they had a dispute or a difference of opinion on if a violation had occurred. And so you just have to work out language in the CR to deal with that, how they would just work out that difference of opinion. So, are there any questions?
I have some questions.
Yeah.
Okay. Is this whole process contingent upon you getting both the $500,000 grant and the $400,000 grant?
It's not contingent on it, but it's very helpful.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the other comment that I want to make is that I know you sent the letters for the land grant and so forth, but I can't sign any of those until it's been reviewed by town council.
I understand, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So at what point would you sign them, do I have to come back here for our meeting, or do you?
No,
Yeah,
no, I think we've
just-
already voted that we would,
Okay.
that we would
That's why
support
I'm
the
just
land
curious
grant.
whether I need to appear again, but you just sign them and then I come pick them up, or?
Yeah,
If town council has any modifications to the letter or
Okay.
the land grant application itself, they are going to try to review it as quickly as possible.
Okay,
We'll be in touch.
Yeah.
If the board votes to vote it, then we can just get
yeah, well, we already voted.
the chairman's signature.
okay. Yeah, and
And
the
go
the
from
grant's due June 18th,
Yeah.
so we have some
Um,
time.
June 18th.
Yeah.
Okay.
Jen, your comment?
Those are the one that, you know, I would recommend the board don't sign anything tonight until you get the review back
Oh, right,
from council. And also, on the CR, I am very uncomfortable with the language on the monitoring in there. This board has made known that we are not taking on any conservation restrictions strictly because we just don't have the staff to monitor these parcels.
right.
That language will need to be modified, but if this is a draft and not the.
It's not, yeah, you know,
not
the final wouldn't happen until we
You will need to
close.
come back before the Concom with the final version of the CR.
Yeah, we would have to do
And
that anyway, yeah.
Because I'm also uncomfortable with our representatives. It puts the responsibility on the town. In the last conservation restriction, you agreed to hold, there was language in there that a third party was going to.
Right, and I think that's what, I think Wendy wants to sort of pin down the third party.
Yeah. I mean,
That
That
the-
may or may not
would
be
you
the
be-
300 committee.
Right,
would you be comfortable if we change representatives to third party?
No.
No, just for
Yeah.
now, it's okay?
No,
Okay.
I mean, I've just.
yeah, I mean, you'll have to
that
change it at some point.
You
Yeah.
have on the table that, you know,
Yeah, yeah,
at this point in time, the town does not have the staff
yes.
to monitor, you know, all the CRs that we currently hold, so.
I understand, yeah. So I'm sure there's an arrangement.
And we will get the second appraisal as soon as
Yeah, that should be ready by Friday.
Friday.
Yeah.
Okay, because the town is, I'm comfortable with the amount of the $800,000, but if we get the appraisals, we'll see what Pat says, because you did send her the CR as well. So,
Okay,
and this will accompany the application up to the state, so any modifications we need to make prior to sending them, that will have to be made. And that's it.
okay,
Anything else?
well, any other questions? Yeah,
I think the biggest thing, I just highlighted something on here, the right to conduct archaeological activities, including without limitation, archaeological research surveys, and so forth. Any of the activities, I know that we'd be notified if there's anything within our jurisdiction.
Right.
And I want to be crystal clear on that, because we've had other community colleges that had done experiments in another part of town without our knowledge, and really, it became a sticky wicket, I should say.
yeah, I mean, Wendy and I talked earlier, because she said, by the way, we did put this in, and I said, well, I see that you said that we would have to be notified, and I said, that's
And I also, there's language in here that you're also notified of the results of any kind of studies too, which
And I appreciate
is
that.
very, yeah.
I think that it goes a long way to give a comfort level when we review these things. It just keeps things clear, and
Right,
that's what we need.
And part of this process too is we have to write a management plan for the land, and so it'll be very clear in that management plan that if there's any kind of
I
studies.
think the way I put it to Wendy was, not only weren't we informed, but if we had been asked, we wouldn't have allowed that activity.
It's one of those things, but, so, outside of that, thank you for being inclusive with that.
Okay, good. Mike?
I'm good.
Anybody from the audience?
Yes, that was,
Okay.
yep.
No, I don't
Correct.
think we have to take any vote. It's always nice to see you.
No, you took your vote last week. so
Right.
okay, when we get the review back,
All right,
put it on letterhead. and
okay, yeah.
have it signed.
Thank you.
And now, moving right on
Yeah, okay, thank you.
to the
Thank
next
you, Wendy.
item, which is another conservation restriction. Review, revise conservation restriction, Tildes. Bob, you're up. Jen, any comments?
Only that you're seeing this again because it did go to the state. There were slight modifications to.
And I'll bet Bob sees that I actually read
To
the
the,
revised.
The revised, to the approved conservation restriction. You all received a red line copy, and then there was one other revision to add language regarding the time frame on the timber to be left on the property. You had asked for that to be removed within a year.
I think that
6
was it.
months. I keep
With
saying
a
6
time
months,
frame.
but I think it's 1 year.
Whatever.
And that was added back in. That didn't make it into the CR, that went up to the state. But I just felt more comfortable with the board reviewing it once again, make sure that you are okay with the changes that the state made. And it should be a quick.
So those red lines, Bob, were from the state?
All of the changes were made in response to comments made by the state by Irene Del Bono, the attorney who reviews these for the state.
Okay.
Yes. And I think...
Because I will say there were some things that were crossed out that I looked at and I said, I'm not an attorney and I don't feel like coming up to speed on
I think some of the
what
changes...
this legal language is.
I know what you mean. I have an answer for that.
Okay. And so I'm comfortable?
You are
I asked you
comfortable.
to, yeah.
You are comfortable, trust me.
So,
I think the commission should be very comfortable. The changes were either picayune in some cases or highly technical, but really didn't change the intention whatsoever.
but you're glad to know that we actually did look at it.
I'm glad you did. Now, the forms that were used, that you saw in February, were drafted by the Cape Cod Compact of Conservation Trusts for the 300 committee, very carefully reviewed. They followed just what the state had approved on the last one that they did, and yet there still were a bunch of little
That's
changes.
because there was
that
a
they
new lawyer who was involved.
Well, no, Attorney Del Bono is terrific to work with, and she's been there for a long time. So it just makes more work, unfortunately.
Yeah. Good, so.
But I would hope that, I think that you had already voted to approve this in February. You, I think, even signed the municipal certification.
Yes.
And that hasn't, none of that should have
Right,
changed.
we're not going to revoke it tonight,
well-
unless anybody wants to.
The date,
No?
I said the municipal cert has the February date on it. If you're fine with that, we'll release that.
Yes, I think that's fine.
Okay. If they want a later date, that's fine.
You want a later date? Till Jen, she'll put it on and we can do it.
No, I don't think it makes any difference. It simply, it goes to the selectmen. They've got it on their agenda for their first meeting in
On the second,
June.
right?
And then what's interesting in particular about this restriction is that it was Falmouth's first application for the state tax credit that is now available and very competitive at the state level, and involved a higher level of review, and the state tax credit for this conservation restriction has been granted. But it also imposed some deadlines. I think we're well within getting this all completed and recorded to meet the deadline, which is the end of June.
Okay,
Thank
good.
you.
Well, good luck.
Thank you.
Okay. Request to continue under a determination of applicability. Charles and Thomas Crane, 39 Juniper Point Road, Woods Hole, for permission to install and maintain an 8-inch water main, fire hydrant, 1-inch water services, in the repaving of approximately 500 linear foot portion of Juniper Point Road. Jen?
Yes, Madam Chairman, the applicant is requesting a continuance until June 11th.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions? Any questions from the audience? Okay, motion on the table is a continuance to June 11th. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous, so moved. Request for determination of applicability. Michael Mattel, 42 Oyster Pond Road, for permission to replace 2 failed cesspools with a new Title V sewage disposal system.
Yes,
Jen?
Madam Chairman, staff has reviewed the project. We're recommending a negative under the bylaw, -2 under the bylaw, and -3 under the state. The resource area boundary is not confirmed.
So moved.
Second.
2 motions and a second on that. Do we have anybody here for an RDA? Okay, just to explain the process, when there's a negative determination, that means you can go ahead with what you've agreed with staff. So that's what you're hoping to hear. Okay, motion on the table to accept staff's recommendation of a negative determination. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous, so moved. Tom and Carlotta Siviero, 87 Santuit Road, North Falmouth, for permission to replace the existing deck within the same footprint with no vegetation to be removed.
Yes, Madam Chairman, the staff has reviewed the project, and we are recommending a -2 under the state and the bylaw with the resource area boundaries not confirmed.
So, second.
Motion, second on the table. Any questions from the board? Any questions from the audience? Okay. Motion on the table to accept staff's recommendation on 87 Santuit Road. Staff's recommendation of a negative determination. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous, so moved. Charles and Thomas Crane is been postponed, no, continued until June 11th. Thomas Sorrell, 83 Bournes Pond Road, for permission to construct a kitchen addition, deck modifications, and house renovations.
Yes, Madam Chairman, we are recommending a -2 under the state and the bylaw with the resource area boundaries not confirmed.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion is second on the table. Any questions on the board? Any questions from the audience? Okay, motion on the table is to accept staff's recommendation of a negative determination. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous, so moved. Town of Falmouth Engineering Department, care of Peter McConerty, intersection area of Surf Drive and Mill Road and Mill Road, for permission to regrade and repave approximately 1,150 linear feet of Surf Drive and approximately 100 feet of the south end of Mill Road with drainage improvements.
Yes,
Jen.
Madam Chairman, we are recommending a +3 under the bylaw and under the state area with the resource area boundaries not confirmed. The town engineering department is aware of that. They will
Okay,
be
and they're
filing
going to
notice of intent.
be preparing an NOI?
Correct.
Okay,
And this is mainly because of the stormwater management, correct?
Correct, all that
Okay.
stormwater is going into the Mill Road stormwater management system that was constructed a few years ago. We just want to make sure that the calculations are correct. Also, they're working very close to this coastal region, so we just
Yep.
figured there needs to be multiple conditions on this, and we prefer to see it under a condition.
yep.
I'll move to accept staff's recommendation.
Second.
Okay, are there any other questions on the board? Any questions from the audience? Okay, motion on the table is to accept staff's recommendation of a positive determination. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous, so moved. Stephen and Dana Herweck, 196 Grand Avenue, Falmouth, for permission to install pre-manufactured fencing and gates at various heights and a pergola, no vegetation to be removed. A pergola, I haven't seen that word for a long time.
Yes, Madam Chairman, we've reviewed the project. We're recommending a -2 under the state and bylaw with resource area boundaries not confirmed.
So move.
Second.
Any questions on the board? Any questions from the audience? Yes? Nancy, you should just take a seat right near it.
I'm interested in knowing.
Nancy, you have to tell us who you are
Nancy
again.
Hayward, West Falmouth.
Thank you.
I'm interested in knowing, pre-manufactured, that covers lots of things. Since I'm on the Historical Commission, I'm not speaking for the Historical Commission, but I'm speaking for the ambiance of Falmouth. Sorry about that. You forgot to, I don't even know where it is.
Jen, do you know anything about what the material
What are they
is?
putting in? What pre-manufactured?
They haven't given us a schematic on the pre-manufactured fencing.
So we don't know if
Assuming
this-
it's like composite fencing, like composite decks?
Probably composite
Ross, have you?
fencing, like on the bike path.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm
Not
assuming it's
something
some
like
sort of
shiny
composite.
plastic.
Or probably pre-made fence
And I understand that your conservation purview does not deal in aesthetics, but as a member of the public, I was interested in knowing what.
Right, well, maybe you could relay that concern
Thank you.
back.
Absolutely, Nancy, I'll make a note, and we'll try to get an answer for you if you call tomorrow.
Thank you.
Not a problem.
And you could suggest why there's a concern, and perhaps they could modify it if it's shiny plastic.
Well, it, in the description, it's shortened near the water, but it specifically describes is to keep small dogs contained. So I do not see this as something that's going to be a very large structure. I would imagine,
But she just wants to know what the material is.
yeah,
She'd rather have rough composite rather than the
yeah,
shiny
pre-manufactured, a stockade fence is pre-manufactured.
Yeah.
Well, I know,
what I'm
that's
trying to
what,
say.
that's what she means, there's all kinds
Yeah,
of
there's-
pre-manufactured. She wants to
Right.
know,
Yeah,
she
okay.
wants to make sure that the people have something that's sensitive to the area.
Exactly, thank you.
Maria Hickey and Associates. I'm a landscaper. I actually did the landscape at this property. It is the house that's next to that mammoth house, the Bristol house that's going up. And I can tell you that down the lot lines, we did put mitigation plants, and then the side that buffers the ocean, again, are mitigation plants. And they're already grown to like at least 5 feet, so I'm not sure that a fence would be obscuring anything, if that helps. It's pretty heavily landscaped. And if it's to contain a dog, I'm thinking it's in the backyard, the side that's closest to the,
Okay, well, Jen can call.
so I just
Follow up.
thought I would offer
Thanks.
that it is very heavily planted.
Okay, good. Okay, but I don't believe
Motion to,
I think we have a motion and a second.
yes,
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
Yep.
On the table to accept staff's recommendation of a negative determination. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous, so moved. Continued request for determination of applicability. Jason, is that Tuat? Zito. Zudo. Zudo, is it French? French-Canadian?
Polish-Lithuanian, they cut off the Zutowskis.
Oh, Zudo, all right. 250, I think there's a little French twist in it. 259 Edgewater Drive West, East Falmouth, for permission to repair the existing dock and replace 2 floats with a 5-foot by 20-foot floats. Jen?
Yes, Madam Chairman, staff is going to recommend a -2 under the state and the bylaw with the resource area boundaries not confirmed, but there are some conditions to this one. Mr.
Zudo.
Zuda does need to shorten the dock so that it's in its licensed
And you know that.
configuration.
I do
He has
know.
been going back and forth with Mark. Also, when the original RDA was issued for licensing purposes, it was said that if this dock were ever to be modified, that a notice of intent must be filed with this board. I think that was the commission's way of controlling what happened with this dock. It was a seasonal dock, needed to be licensed. The board agreed to it under an RDA, but any modification would need to come back. So because the floats are being modified, we have instructed the applicant to file a notice of intent by July 15th of this year. We'll approve it under the RDA, but that notice of intent does need to be filed.
Oh, okay.
And that way it gets them a start on the
Otherwise, we might have to
summer.
see you again.
It'll be filed.
Okay, you don't want to come here in the summertime. Okay, so, did you give us a recommendation?
Yeah,
Negative.
Oh,
-200
did we?
in the bylaw with the resource
Motion
area
to
boundaries not
accept.
confirmed.
Second.
Okay, any questions? Any questions from the audience? Okay, motion on the table is to accept staff's recommendation of a negative determination. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous, so moved. Did any of your teachers ever get it correct?
Never.
Never. Well, if you do come back, I'll know what it is.
Hope not.
Eugene,
Garofalo.
thank you. Garofalo, 199, I wouldn't have gotten yours quite as far off. I would have had the accent on the wrong syllable. 199 Edgewater Drive West, East Falmouth, for permission to acquire a Conservation Commission approval for the existing deck. No work is dock. No work is proposed.
Again, Madam Chairman, we are proposing a -2 under the state and the bylaw with the resource area boundaries not confirmed, and the applicant must work with the staff by no later than July 21st to deal with a slight patio issue on the property.
You know about that?
Yes, we recently purchased the property. All these
Sir?
problems are inherent.
Sir, you have to go up and
Oh, I'm sorry.
tell us.
That's all right.
Eugene Garofalo, East Falmouth. We recently purchased this property, and these issues brought up by the agent were inherent prior to the purchase. So we're just looking to make the property conform.
Yeah, so you understand what the process
I do.
is. Okay, great.
Thank you.
Move to accept staff's
Thank you.
recommendation.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the table. Any further comments? To accept staff's recommendation of a negative determination. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous, so moved. Thank you. Thomas and Nicole Hines, 164 Penzance Road, Woods Hole, for permission to repair and maintain existing stone and concrete seawall that includes replacing stones and grout that have washed out, pressure washing the existing wall and repointing using fast-setting grout. Temporary elevated aluminum or timber planking above the salt marsh shall be used to minimize impacts to the salt marsh. Work can be done during periods of low tide.
Yes, Madam Chairman, the staff is recommending a -2 under the state and bylaw with the resource area boundaries not confirmed as long as the work conforms to the methodology.
So moved.
Second.
So all the issues were resolved?
To the best of our knowledge, correct.
Okay.
Mark is comfortable with the footprint, it
Okay.
needs some work, but
Any questions from the audience? Okay, motion on the table is to accept staff's recommendation of a negative determination. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous, so moved. Requests for hearings under a notice of intent. All hearings of the Falmouth Conservation Commission are heard simultaneously under the authority of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Falmouth Wetlands Bylaw. Although a single decision is issued, or a single order is issued, it represents a separate decision under each authority. Before I go on, I just want to point out, unfortunately, there are only 3 engineers in the audience. Mike was here, I wish he were here also. But there are other applicants' representatives. And I just want to say, in the last month or so, actually, you're not on my list, but we've seen you relatively recently. I have seen so many errors when I go out into the field with the plan. Either resource areas aren't on the board, aren't delineated at all. Resource area buffers, which are also resource areas, are not correctly put on the plan. There's fill proposed, but we don't really know how much fill there's going to be, et cetera, et cetera. There are proposed projects in velocity zones, and it's sort of slipped in as land subject to coastal storm flowage. These are all things that you're used to putting on plans for several years. We didn't have problems, and for some reason, I don't think it's been a full moon for the last 60 days. But look over these things. Think about what it is, what kinds of questions we're going to ask before you submit plans, and then before you come before us. Court.
Yeah, I want to follow up on that. You engineers who come in front of us should know the regulations. They should know enough to know that everything has to be complete. And as far as I'm concerned, if it's incomplete, and these obvious things aren't there, then we shouldn't even open it, number one. I agreed to open a hearing last week or 2 weeks ago, only reluctantly, because it's not serving the commission's interest, it delays the process, it also doesn't serve the applicant's interests. And I don't think it reflects well on the engineers who's submitting sloppy and incomplete work.
Well, with that, let's see who's first. Oh, I think it's you.
This is me?
Bruce and Teresa
It's me.
McRae.
Yeah.
It is you. 441 Elm Road, for permission to remove existing lawn, construct a patio, reconfigure existing mitigation plantings, install additional mitigation plantings, and the associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping. Well, this was well staked. Did you stake it? Your group? Yeah. Yo, you get some credit in that too? All right.
Yeah, everybody chipped in, did the best they could. And David, for the record, David Martin here on behalf of the applicant. And here with me is Maria Hickey, who is going to help me out with plants, I hope. Not a lot of engineering here. I'll just point out that the rear of the house is a proposed patio at 441 square feet. We are in the B outer 25-foot buffer zone, and as such are going to mitigate for that structure, so I'm considering impervious at a ratio of 2 to 1. There were some concerns that were brought up about the plants, some confusion. I stayed off on the fringe with that. There were some plants that I've identified here that we believed were plethora during the winter, but it turns out they're not. So Maria's going to help us out with that.
Yeah, we have some concerns about what's going to happen with the plants too, but I think we can work through those concerns today.
Absolutely.
Maria?
Okay. I wish Mario was here because he was my partner crawling through everything and identifying and pointing out some of the things. Maria Hickey and Associates, I'm the landscaper that's involved with this project. And I went to a little bit of effort, since we had some problems identifying some things, for doing a little handout for you all with pictures.
Oh, handouts, pictures are great.
So Jen, I did get that tree identified today.
Oh, I saw that, thank you.
Thank you.
What was it, a maple?
Yeah, it's a,
Oh,
the
down on my
common name
phone.
of it is a poison ivy tree. So I'm itchy as I say it.
But it's not, is it poison ivy?
No, there is
Oh.
tons of poison ivy in there though.
Yeah.
Just so you know.
But poison ivy grows very tree-like places.
I don't know if you know my aunt, Ann Buckley, but Mario worked for her for years. She's a horticulturist, and they did a ton of projects, Nantucket, the vineyard, all over the Cape, identifying trees and plants. So I actually sent her the picture, and I sent the owner at Sylvan Nursery, and within 5 minutes, they both came back with the same answer. That is, in fact, an Acer negundo. This is the giant tree that's against the stone wall that has honeysuckle growing up it. The honeysuckle is probably 10 to 15 feet already. The honeysuckle has spread into the neighboring viburnum that was planted under the original project, the addition of the library. So part of what we're seeking permission for is not only to move some of the mitigation plants and replace them with additional mitigation plants, but to go in and take out the invasives that perhaps were missed on the first time 3 years ago when the prior landscape company had gone in and done the mitigation plans. So I took these pictures this morning with Jen and Mark, and I just wanted you to see that around this Acer negundo, it's so tightly wrapped with the honeysuckle, and even at the base, there's so many shoots of the honeysuckle coming out that it's almost virtually impossible to eradicate the honeysuckle without taking out the Acer negundo as well. So I did go and I took a picture of it. I thought you'd appreciate the little background with the Native Americans used the wood and the bark for the ace and agundo with, if you wanted me to save any, if you were to grant permission. I always like to just find out the history of everything. So you'll see on that first page that I'm showing you how the honeysuckle is just growing into everything. Then the second group of pictures, lovely picture of Mark, as Jen and I pointed a few things out to him, was the area that's located that says native, perennials and wildflowers. And in fact, there's Phragmites in there. There are also a number of plants that are not native. They were there when we started on this project. Rose of Sharon trees, there's some flag in there, there's tons of jewelweed. So we'd also, on top of everything else, like to go in and take out what's not native, and obviously the Phragmites, and replace with the native plantings. So the overview and scope of the project, obviously the new owners of the home would like to put a patio out back. We understand that's going to trigger a 2-to-1 mitigation planting, which both of us went out and staked to show where those plantings would be. But on top of that, we respectfully ask permission to address the view obstructing height of the existing shrubs in the first row in a manner that best serves the long-term health of the native shrubs and is least disruptive to the buffer zone. We're trying to create and establish and maintain a functioning wildlife habitat. So for starters, those 25 plants that were identified in all the reports that the COC was signed in.
Notice of intent.
Okay, were not viburnum. So that was the first thing. It's not even the correct plant that is there. However, it's Baccharis. If you looked when you guys went out on Sunday, I don't know if you noticed that over 60% of them, the habitat is they grow up and they just keep getting taller and taller and taller. And if you're trying to have a wildlife habitat, you want thicket. You want things that spread so the bunnies and the birds can nest and be protected. So these Baccharis that are in the front row, they're very tall. All the branches are breaking because they can't support the weight of the tree. And they're falling onto other shrubs and they're damaging some of the other mitigation plants like the clethra and the winterberry. I went back there with Mario and I was pointing it out. I know the homeowner had said when you guys went on Sunday, you didn't go in through, which I don't blame you because there's tons of poison ivy. I would have stayed out too, but I wanted to go in and take the pictures just to show you.
You're lucky that I didn't, because if I were sitting here with poison ivy, I'd be more upset than I already am.
So, and anyhow, I just wanted to kind of give you that background. What we are respectfully asking permission for is what I consider a one and done. We go in once, we address all these problems, and reestablish or actually have a better buffer to encourage, the wildlife habitat and natives so that nobody has to ever walk in there again. Because every time you have to walk in to get out invasives, you're disturbing the area. We don't want to do that. We would just want to go in and get out what shouldn't be in there, replant what should be in there, and not walk away from it, but stay away from the area. So I put a lot of thought into the types of plants that should and shouldn't go in there. And unfortunately, Jen, my laser printer ran out of a cartridge, so I couldn't print out the differences. We had a discussion today between the Carolina rose, the Virginiana rose, and the Rosa palustris. And I wanted you all to see that I didn't pick the shortest rose. I picked the one that's the middle of the road, which is the Rosa virginiana, because it will develop those long canes, which is what we want to keep people out and to keep the animals in and keep them safe. And it will also help keep the invasives from growing up because it's going to block out the light. Granted, one seed, 2.5 inches down, can grow up and sprout. But it needs light, it needs water, and it needs sun. So we're trying to get a thickly dense area in there. So that was why in the very, very front, in the section where the grass is, I was proposing to put in the roses. The hips of the roses that are produced are very healthy for the birds. They like to eat them. It encourages nesting from like 5 different types of native birds. Not that anyone wants to hear this, but field mice, skunks, all kinds of animals like to live in there. So if the primary objective is to have a nice habitat for these animals, they would be very happy to set up camp. So what we were asking permission to do was to take out the section of the large Baccharis and to move them left and right. To your right, in the same area, same conditions, right up against that chain link fence, there's some red twig dogwood, but there's plenty of room to put some over there. And the other place was the chain link fence that is closest to Surf Drive Beach. It would be on the south side. And we would replace all of these plantings with a mix of clethra, winterberry, bayberry, and the Rosa virginiana. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I wanted to add to this. Just that I know that the original owner, when she built a wing on the house with the library, she just wanted to sit in the library and look out at the water. And that's why things were done years ago, how they were done. This owner has a family. They want to enjoy looking at the water through the main portion of the house that they're going to spend all their time. I believe, if it's okay to say, the library is going to become a TV room. So there probably won't be a lot of looking out the window. So they want to have a nice, beautiful outdoor space. And I believe that the plants that we have suggested will help achieve that. And we're not going to get into issues with the honeysuckle growing again and again and again, which it is doing right now. I don't know that it was even taken out before, given the size the plants are now. I mean,
Okay, I think
You get the idea.
I think we have the idea. Let's,
Okay. And I understand that you guys don't like anyone to go in and touch anything. I'm just trying to present the case as to why.
I have a lot to say about this.
Okay,
Just to tell you, we see what your concern is, but I think we have a lot to say and we want to see a lot more from you.
sure.
Jen?
I just have one quick question. The board's going to help to determine whether or not you want to shift those plants around. Maria, when we were out in the field this morning,
Yep.
take the viburnum,
Yeah.
knock them out,
Yep, yep.
put them off to the side, replant that area,
Yep.
and then start with the patio mitigation, correct?
Yes, correct.
How is that, so I'm looking at Dave's plan,
Mhm.
and I see proposed mitigation, Rosa virginiana,
Yep.
70 square feet.
Yep.
Proposed clethra, 180 square feet. Proposed mitigation, the rose again, 360 square feet. I get 610 as opposed to the 282, but then you have the relocated viburnum.
Because they were proposed to be removed, and if I could, and then reused. The area that they're coming out of is getting re-established with vegetation. So they become, you could think of them as going away from the site and then coming back as mitigation. They're a net gain in mitigation plans. Because when they were removed from the area that we're proposing to remove it from, they're going to be replaced with natural vegetation, so that's a net zero loss. Does that make sense?
It makes sense, but you're asking to modify a mitigation area. And so
That's
what
true.
I had asked for it to be done was replant them, replant that area, and then start over with the patio. That's what I had originally.
I think that's what we're doing.
No.
No.
Well, before we even get to that,
Oh, and honestly.
Jen,
no,
before we get to the details of that,
Yeah.
I have a lot of
No, I
other
understand that.
concerns that you might want to take into account
Sure.
before you decide what you're going to do with those plants.
Leave the jewel weed.
Yep.
put a methodology in for the Phragmites. It's a great time to get rid of that Phragmites we talked about.
Oh,
this morning,
absolutely.
Because you only have a couple of little shoots coming up.
Yep.
I have no problem with losing the Rose of Sharon, so that net gain, Dave, might come into play here when, you know, we're removing the honeysuckle, we're removing the Sharon, we're removing the Phragmites. Leave the jewelweed. Jewelweed's awesome. If you're in the field, you come
That's
across
fine.
poison ivy, pick the jewelweed up, smush it out. Put the jewelweed juice on your hands, it takes away the poison ivy oils.
Oh, well, you'll have to teach me that trick.
A little field trip. So that's it. The board is gonna have to determine what you'd like to do in this case as far as the mitigation plan.
Cool.
Mr. Martin would like to-
Maybe I could help clarify in the mitigation. The survey located the edge of vegetation presently, and all of the mitigation that we're proposing, 2 to 1,
Is
is
landward of that.
landward of that line. Is that a clearer way to think of that?
Okay.
Let's
Solve other problems first, let's go.
Let's solve other problems, because I'm gonna wanna see a new plan,
Okay,
because I don't like some of your ideas for this plan.
okay.
And partly is, frankly, I think it looks horrible looking out there right now.
Oh, yeah.
However, it was an established buffer. I agree that there are things that you can do, that you can shift your view, but right now you have a view. You're right, there was a view that was established from that other house. You can shift that view. But as I see right now, you're planning to keep that view that's there and add some low things in front of it, and then have another view. I think people should have views, and I don't have a problem with you moving some of those tall, leggy plants, because as a group, it's not attractive at all, and there's no kind of diversity.
Yeah.
But I would like to see a buffer with some clumping down below, but I would suggest you would think about putting a few more trees in there too.
Okay.
You know, your point, one objective is wildlife, which it is, but an important function of these woody buffers is to absorb water, nutrients, other pollutants that could be there. And, you know, the bigger the tree, the bigger the root mass you get, the more effective that's done.
And I believe in the project overview and the planting plan, I had submitted that we would be planting the entire buffer with ground covers. So right
Yeah,
at
and
the soil level.
that gets you up to this height.
I was trying to get varying heights.
Well, I want to go varying heights all the way up to tree height.
Okay.
Trees, bushes, ground cover, that can all be part of the mix. Courtney, any questions? No questions? Tom?
I'm going to defer to others as far as vegetation is going. I think the activity, I think the intent is there. It just needs to be tweaked a little bit.
Okay.
To, you know, you could put both any of the names in front of it, and I couldn't tell you the difference. But I think it's just, I understand what you're saying with your net zero and things.
I understand what he's saying.
Yeah, I got what he was saying.
Yeah, that I have no issue with. I think that it's just gonna be, and the migration of a vista is natural, because that happens without any intervention by humans. You know, vistas change. So, I think you got the hint that we're gonna be addressing that. And that's about all I got for right now. And thank you for the pictures.
You know, and even an area like that,
Yeah.
if you had some low shrubs and one
Absolutely.
tree, it'll frame the view.
I mean,
If
what
somebody,
I'm suggesting
instead of
is,
watching TV, they're reading a book and looking out.
but what I was suggesting, even on that area with that they have their view, there's things in there that are not native, the Rosa Sharon trees. Would be taking those out and replacing, if you want to put a Tupelo
Yeah, I
tree
mean, the
in there.
irony is, you
Yeah.
have your mitigation planning landward of a whole patch of non-native
Yeah.
plants.
Well, that came about in the previous process.
Right,
when-
right, no.
When that was left because it was a valuable buffer and presumably you couldn't touch it. So,
No, I'm not, what I'm talking about is this area
Yeah.
that has
She's talking about this
perennial
right here.
flowers.
Right near Mark's
I'm not-
coffee cup.
I would have preferred you got the picture of Mark with the tree hanging out of it.
I'm talking about the
Yeah.
area
You got the
that's the viewscape now.
Yeah.
A lot of those plants there are non-native.
That's exactly what I was saying.
Right.
We want to
right.
take
And
out the non-natives.
What you really want to try to achieve is to have more native shrubs, by the edge of the water there.
Exactly. We're on the same page.
And a tree or two.
Yeah, we're on the same
So
page.
what-
I might not have expressed
You know what I
it.
would like to see? I would
What?
like you to get together with Dave and give us a plan that gives us a little better idea of what it's going to look like when you're done.
Madam Chairman, like this, you want kind of like this across the,
Yeah, and
Yeah,
they
I
can
know
have
what you
they should have a nice view. It's a beautiful
Absolutely.
spot
Yeah.
there.
Sure.
so if I could summarize for our benefit, you'd like.
Well,
to-
wait, I'm the only one who spoke, because I kind of turned this way and they both didn't say anything, but these gentlemen might want to put their 2 cents in, too. It's just that I understand exactly where you're coming from, why you want to make this, it's a beautiful site. They have a potential for a beautiful backyard with a diversity of native plants.
I totally agree with you, because it doesn't look right, where you have all this high growth and then so low.
Yeah. It's a little bit of my cornfield mentality. I don't like to see cornfields out there. Yeah, Russ.
What's a black poly pipe doing there, Mike?
Dave,
Dave.
I puzzled over that
Sorry.
myself.
This is Mike.
We've investigated it visually. Don't have an answer for you. It's
been there all
been there
along.
for years. We've looked at it, puzzled over it, to no conclusion.
You think it's an old irrigation system?
It's funny that the location would be such as it is along the edge
Yeah.
there. It may date, I don't know the history of the property, I guess I shouldn't make any suggestions. I looked, we considered attempting to remove it, but it looked like that would
It's
be
really
more
entwined.
detrimental than just letting it stay in place.
Put dirt on top of it.
Yeah.
And Betsy, I think just to address really quick what you're saying about the varying heights, and what I was saying about the honeysuckle twisted and wrapped inside of that acer, I have to take the acer to get out the honeysuckle. We're willing to put in a couple of Tupelo trees or whatever you'd
Yeah,
like to see,
I understand.
in this area that has the view to open up next door, so that we have that all the way across.
Okay, Mike?
Looking at the lawn and green, very green appearance, removing
Suspicious?
some of it and putting in other plants sounds like a positive direction. I would encourage limiting fertilizer on that lawn. It is on next to Oyster Pond, which isn't,
Exactly.
really doesn't need any more nitrate. So, we have a bylaw for conditions, and I encourage people to do what they can. That's it.
Okay,
So for the record, the lawn's not been fertilized in 2 years, and it's been a remarkably good year for grasses this year. Much of the snow cover and the rain.
That's fine.
okay.
That's fine. I'm just, I
Yeah,
just,
yeah.
people are worried about oyster plant.
That's
and
right.
I would like
I
to
walk
see
at
a new-
that gorgeous lawn,
You're gonna
and
get
I
fungus
couldn't
in it.
grow that if I tried, so I'm maybe
didn't tell you
jealous.
that.
but-
I think it's got wet
fungus.
feet, that's why it's happy.
I would like to see a new planting plan, where the trees are gonna go.
Okay,
How much time would you like
yeah, I can have it tomorrow.
for that?
I mean, I know exactly what, or Friday or Monday, Tuesday, whatever.
Would you like it to come back before the full board, or work with staff on that? Betsy?
Are you comfortable working with it?
I'm I'm comfortable with
It's
that,
up to
but
you,
I'm
Madam
with,
Chairman.
Yeah.
I'm with
Ken will
Tom, you
show
know.
it,
I
Jen will
wouldn't
show
know
it
a
to me.
plan.
Okay.
Okay?
Because I think we're all in agreement here, so.
Yeah, this is
But just tweaking a few things, I understand what you're saying.
I will be happy to review it, Madam Chairman, but you're gonna review it as well.
that's what I said.
Yeah, whatever, if you're comfortable going with what, staff says and the chairman says, it's fine.
Absolutely.
Okay, we'll get rid of the leggy plans.
We're gonna move the leggy
Yeah,
plants.
we're gonna move them, I know.
You shouldn't have
back-
said that they were such lousy plants,
I'm sorry.
since you wanna move them and put them somewhere else.
They're beautiful screening plants, how's that?
Yeah, I know you don't want them as a wall, though, between your house that you're spending a lot of tax money because you're on the water and you can't see anything. You
I
don't
did
want
take
that.
on the application, I have my oldest son plays football in college, and he's a large individual, and I took a picture of him next to one of them, and he looks like a
He's
midget.
dwarfed, isn't he?
Yeah, so, just to give you the, but then he went down and saw, so you know what we're
Yeah,
talking about.
no, yeah, I mean, as soon as Russ and I went out on Sunday, and as soon as we walked around, it's like,
Madam Chairman, well, if you wanted to close this hearing, we could condition it with the submittal of a new planting plan to be approved by staff and only to be implemented after approval by staff.
yeah.
Okay.
That would be my motion.
Second.
Did you get that, Susan? We're gonna close this hearing and take it under advisement, but there's gonna be a new plan by next Wednesday.
Sure.
That has to be approved by stamp. Yeah, it must be, people with cell phones must be sort of like the engineers.
Come on,
I
go
guess
easy,
they've all been on vacation.
You got one on the table here, you better go easy on us, guys.
I'm shutting it off, I'm shutting it off. Yeah.
So that would be my motion to reflect what was just discussed.
I'll yell at my own commission over a cell phone. Absolutely.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Are there,
We need a second.
I'll second it.
Yeah, Russ seconded
Russ,
Thank you.
any questions from the audience? Okay, all in favor of the motion on the table, which is to close this hearing and take it under advisement with the submission of a plan by next Wednesday? Because we wouldn't vote until the Wednesday after that.
And I'll officially apologize for my overzealousness in staking. I think I put like 30 stakes out there. Like every 2 feet, I put a stake.
No, the
But I wanted
stakes,
you guys to be clear.
the
These were-
stakes were
It was
great.
very- I appreciate it.
All right.
Yeah, we did not, we liked the staking.
Okay.
Hey,
We like the
Call me the
site,
queen of the
we
snakes.
like the concept of what you want to do. It's the details.
Okay.
Back to those details again.
You got it.
Okay, there's a motion, I didn't take the vote, did I?
No, we did not.
Motion, a second on the table to close the hearing and take it under advisement. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, unanimous, so moved.
Thank you.
Thank you. Make sure you don't get on my list, David.
Watch out.
Yeah, but you're not on the list yet. I know who's on the list.
The end of the radar.
Yes, there are at least 3 other engineers who are on, you're not on the list either.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. Yet. William LaBarris and Janice Wellank, 354 Acapesket Road, East Falmouth, for permission to raise, RAZE, the existing dwelling and construct a new single-family
Barbara, I need my old.
dwelling with attached garage, deck with stairs, front landing, install new driveway, Title V sewage disposal system, AC and generator pads, utilities, relocate the existing shed, and associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping. Jen?
Yes, Madam Chairman, I'll save any of my questions until after Barbara's presentation. And
Barb-
you should have a plan, and either receive a plan today by hand, or it should be in front of you.
Should be in front. Everybody, everybody was.
Barbara, good evening.
Good evening, Barbara Rapier with Warwick and Associates.
Madam
You got
Chair,
it, you got it,
And-
Courtney. You got it today.
I got it today, but aren't they supposed to be submitted a week in advance?
Yes, they are. We made the statement about the engineer.
Everybody's
We're all on the same page.
on notice.
I
That
did not
if-
have, I'm on notice, I'm putting it on notice that I did not have enough time to look at the plan.
It's okay.
Good evening. I appreciate...
Believe me, Courtney, the plan was not the biggest issue. The plan came in because of another issue that Barbara will tell us about.
That is correct. I appreciate the group public caning, and but I am one of the perps this evening. This property on Acapesket is a raise and rebuild of an existing house. Resource areas are coastal bank. There is a little bit of land subject to coastal storm flowage up front. It's an A zone. And there is a salt marsh landward of the lowest revetment. The objective is to tear down the existing house and build a new home, which has been pushed back about 15 feet or better from the top of the coastal bank, and has been moved out of the resource areas so that we have a negative footprint. What I did was calculate it's in the narrative, calculate the square footage of structure and hardscape in the A and B buffer to the top of coastal bank, which is the second wall. And we have a total structure and impervious area of a net loss of 126 square feet in the buffer to the top of coastal bank. Of that net reduction, there's 302-foot reduction in the A buffer, and there is 176 increase in the B buffer. So we have a net reduction of 126.
Good thing you gave me that figure.
Yes. Now, I also did a second set of calculations for the A buffer, which is the entire 100 feet from the top of from the edge of the salt marsh. We are showing with the moving of the house, as well as the reduction in its footprint, we are showing a 440 square foot reduction in the impervious area within the 100-foot buffer to the salt marsh. On the site plan, I gave you separate existing conditions and proposed.
Thank you.
On the plan there, I don't know if you can see it, you can see in red, it shows how far back we have moved the house from where the existing house is sited. Also part of this project, there is a cesspool here, and that will be filled and pumped, filled and abandoned, and a new Title V septic system properly sized will be set out here outside of jurisdiction and also outside of any buffer zones, of course, to any wetlands. Additionally, which is not really your issue, but you will ask the question, the house does meet the better than 50 feet from the 3-foot contour with the setback that we're showing. There will be a change in the driveway shape, but that has been calculated in our lot coverages, and we still have a net reduction
Of impervious.
Impervious surface in both sets of buffers. And,
Could I just address
sure,
that?
yes.
So in a case like this, and you've done it in the past, but maybe you haven't done it for a long time, and you
All
don't
right.
remember. The A buffer would be the salt marsh line. The B buffer is whatever is beyond that as still buffer
So
zone.
even more. So I would end up then having 526 square foot reduction in footprint
Right.
in the overall A buffer.
Right. But it's important to calculate it that way,
Mhm.
because what if you were to expand in that B buffer?
Exactly. And that was my oversight. I wasn't trying.
I was surprised because you actually started doing this, and most of the engineers do this now. But, I mean, this is the way to do it, but your A buffer is the salt marsh buffer, your B buffer is the outermost.
And because the
100 foot.
because the salt marsh was inside, I
Yeah,
slipped a cog. I just concentrated on the buffer that was the most landward, and unfortunately, the salt marsh buffer is almost coincidental with the A buffer for the top of bank as well.
Yeah, well, it's a little bit
A
more.
little bit, but it's all in, I think there's only like 40 feet tops.
Yeah, But it didn't make a difference in
didn't make a
this case,
difference.
but it could make a difference.
It could, I could see where it could make a
I just want to
difference.
make sure that everybody's consistent.
I will never do this again.
No, and nor will
Till next month.
Jeff
Next
or
time.
Mike.
So, with that being said, do you have any questions?
Barbara?
Yes.
The rest of it?
Yes, it was brought to my attention
Very late today.
very late today,
Just before the meeting.
just before the meeting, that there is an old outstanding order of conditions on this property that dates back to 1993. There's no evidence that it was ever recorded. I did a registry search. Bill and Janice had their attorney do a registry search, and there's nothing that shows that it was ever recorded. Oddly enough,
It's for the construction of the pier.
it was for the construction of the pier. Subsequent to that order, there were two other orders of conditions issued for the construction of the pier, which seems to say that the first one never got recorded, never got acted on. The subsequent orders back in the late 90s and early 2000s were very contentious with this board. The then owners of the property got a superseding order from DEP. The dock was built, and certificates of compliance were issued on both orders. And that came to be, there was one order that didn't have a certificate of compliance, which was cleaned up prior to Bill and Jan buying the property. So what was brought to my attention was on the original order that was never recorded, there was a condition for a 10-foot buffer strip along the top of the bank. That was not a condition in any of the subsequent orders. So that order never got acted upon. It was never recorded. Subsequently, two other orders have been issued for the same work. The Chapter 91 license was granted for the water-dependent structures. So I think
What year was the Chapter 91 license?
the Chapter 91 license was,
Issued when?
huh?
Issued at what year?
I'm looking, I gotta see where, I have it here somewhere. John.
Because this order was for the construction of the pier and the licensing of that revetment.
The licensing of the revetment.
License revetment was
Because it was existing.
licensed,
97.
when was the pier?
The 97 was when the license was.
Yeah.
That original order was from 93.
Yeah, so when was the pier approved and?
I don't have a copy in my file of the middle order. I have the latest, the last order,
It's 2004.
which was
something like that.
2004. So I think the other one was in the late 90s, so I'm not sure.
So basically, they got an order of conditions.
Right.
Didn't record it, sent it off to the state, got their license for the riprap,
Mm-hmm.
and then came back and never built the pier for some reason.
Got another order to build the
But
pier.
got another order to build the pier.
Didn't build it.
So they did use this order to get the licensing for the revetment.
I don't
So-
know that.
Well, just look at the timeline.
Yeah,
So-
well, I mean, you could surmise
Or
that.
the board's gonna have to decide whether you want to see the 10-foot buffer strip for the licensing of the revetment and the original order. I'm just bringing it to your attention.
What I would like to add to that conversation is this. Bill and Janice, when they were purchasing this property, did better than most in their due diligence in looking at town offices, at files, record files on this property, and that old order never surfaced. They hired an attorney, which also did a research that never surfaced. I have twice, once again tonight, and once when I first did this, did a registry. This never surfaced anywhere. One of the reasons that they purchased this property was because they had a nice view of the pond. And to now tell them, after they did due diligence and aren't trying to avoid any duty or obligation on their part, I don't think is appropriate in this case or fair.
You sound as if we have buffers as punishments.
No,
Buffers-
I don't
buffers play a
consider them,
role.
I don't consider them punishment, but most people who have an unobstructed water view do consider them punishment.
But people who want healthy waterways here have to realize
I understand.
Vegetated buffers,
But I have
woody
something,
vegetated buffers.
I have something
play a
to add
role
to
in
that.
that.
I have something to add to that. Fortunately, Janice is a landscaper.
Uh-huh.
And she is going to, we've already talked, and she is, once she gets her plan and the septic design is finished and all of that, is going to be proposing landscaping on this property, and there's going to be some plantings forward of the house. Are they going to be view-blocking 10-foot shrubs? No, that wasn't what she had in mind. But they're going to be focused on native plants with an eye towards habitat value. And so she's already there. It's not going to be emerald green lawn and hydrangeas.
There's some lovely irises there now, I'm sure you've
There are,
noticed them.
she did see them.
About the flower.
And she'd said that at some point there it looks like there had been a perennial garden all along the top there that she was thinking of maybe restoring. So that's what I'd like to say.
Okay, well, we have that information and we can take it under consideration in deliberation. Mike,
Madam Chair.
Court, I just called on Mike.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
The shed to the south, it's to be relocated to where?
Well, actually, it's being, if you look at one plan, it's just basically being twisted and moved a little bit, but it's basically staying in the same spot. It's just going to be,
They're gonna rotate it.
it's going to rotate it.
Okay. There is what I believe is a garage on the north side. There's a spruce tree. As that tree is, as I looked at it today, I think you'd be driving under or through portions of it to get to that garage.
The spruce is just outside of that, well, maybe it would be. There is only, I think we had 2 trees total on the whole property that were coming out. None. She said none. We moved everything so nothing would come out.
Well, the way it is staked, you'll have a hard time getting into the garage, physically. If
Okay.
you stand where that is, and I'm just, there are so many trees on the property, I don't think it's an issue. I'm just saying, you go to build it, and you're gonna find that corner of the garage is looking at a tree.
It was rather tricky to get it in there without, wrap everything around all the trees.
The new walls coming off are pretty substantial. At some point, you'll have, well, let me go back to this is a net fill, I take it?
Yes.
You're raising the
Yes.
whole, so it's a net
Yes.
fill. So at some point, we'll see some volume?
No, there's not, there's no more additional fill. We're gonna use the same hole and just push back, so if anything, there'll be
The
a
whole
little
thing's
loss.
coming up. That first floor is coming up 2 feet?
But it's in the same hole, except it's coming forward a bit.
Oh, they'll take the fill. Okay,
Yeah.
that's right. All right, good thought. No other questions?
Good.
You're comfortable where the septic?
She said that they haven't designed it yet, so.
Well, that's the location,
The septic tank.
outside of
There's no septic.
jurisdiction.
Tank.
Normally, we would see that plus a septic tank.
Well, we haven't put the tank on because Jan was going to work with the engineer so for her plantings and stuff, to put it in the right spot. But it'll be underground, somewhere in the
It's about
driveway
10
area.
feet away from the house usually.
10 feet away from the house, underground.
Usually. So I'm assuming
Probably
that-
be an H20 under the driveway.
So would it be within the commission's jurisdiction?
Yes,
It'll be within 100 feet.
but the field is outside.
That was my, I'm all set.
Tomas.
Do you have a contractor picked out?
Yes, we do.
Okay, I want him to be aware of it, and I'm pleased to hear that you visited the site and no removal of trees. I think it is going to be a challenge to make sure that they stay healthy during the construction period, and that maybe trees that you're that are somewhat close to that, so the machinery and activities therein, just orange construction fence, site management, that's a key thing. You make your contractor aware of the notice of intent and all the orders in it. That's something that should be reviewed. All the conditions. All the conditions, for most everybody in the audience, all the conditions, when given to a contractor, the engineers work hard at presentations, and if a contractor has a question about an order, he should be able to contact his engineer about that. And that's my strongest communication thing for you. The rest of this, as far as the top of the bank, when the original order,
We can discuss it.
yeah, that's something, but as long as you have, because it's going to be within 10 feet of the structure, the septic tank.
Okay.
Whether it goes left, right, up, or back, it's on the landward side of stuff, it's not a big deal. Placement.
It should be on the plan, though.
But I don't.
Yes,
True, but it's under the driveway, it will be left, right, here, there.
yes.
I don't know where the utilities are coming in. You can't tell the gas company where you're gonna put the gas line. You know, they're gonna tell me.
Regarding the original order and the 10-foot buffer, but on face value, I'd say that's kind of a moot point because the order was never followed out with one issue. If they applied for a Chapter 91 license, did they have to cite that order in order to get the license?
They don't if it predated a certain date. I've gotten Chapter 91 licenses with a letter, or pictures, with predating. So I don't know, I don't know who these people
Do
were.
we have the Chapter 91 license?
I have a copy of it right here.
Okay, would you give us a copy for the record?
Yes.
And we'll see whether there's any reference.
Yeah, I mean, if there's no reference to it and it wasn't acted on, then, you know, I would,
The ramp and pier wasn't built under this order, I can tell you that. This order was to do that and do the revetment, if they didn't, and license the revetment. It wasn't acted on, so. But if it was used to license that revetment, that's something the board does need to consider.
Well, and then
Because I
we'll
do
see
not
whether
wanna-
there's anything in the
Madam Chairman,
license.
I do not want to have this argument in 6 months with someone else crying about an order that was never recorded.
Yeah.
It is, the onus is on the applicant.
no, I understand, and if the original order was used to get the license, then I think we have to look at the conditions of that order.
Okay.
Doesn't mean we have to, you know, we have to take that into account.
I would just like to stretch that out a little bit, is that subsequent to that order, which apparently somebody had, that was never carried forward as one of your conditions in 2 subsequent orders for that same dock. The other thing is that it's not like they found out about this 93 order when they did and came to look through the folders and the files. It didn't exist around. And they based their decision to purchase on that.
No,
And
I understand. I'm simply stating that if there's evidence that the Chapter 91 license was obtained utilizing that order, then our job as a commissioner is to take that into account. Now, how we take it into account is a different issue, but we do have to take it into account. I'm entirely sympathetic to the current owner's dilemma here, okay? I have no reason to doubt that they didn't do their due diligence, and if it was never recorded, it would be a hard thing to uncover. They'd have to be really doing some digging.
Did you give us a license?
I only have, well,
Oh, will you?
I'll give you my copy because I can just,
Send me a copy tomorrow.
Just send a
All right.
copy.
I'm not trying to be a
Scan
stickler
it.
on this, I'm just simply trying to.
I know you don't want
Yeah,
to
and we'll have that in the
set a
record.
bad example.
I just want to make a comment about that riprap. That riprap's going to fail.
Well, the license gives them the ability to repair it.
Well, I'm just saying to the homeowners, those toe stones are not in good shape. Wouldn't you say that? There's a lot of, these were the days where they put a lot of concrete between the stones, and a lot of that's failing, and some of those stones are slumping. Do you know that, my other question is, do you know when that riprap was originally
I don't, I was
built?
gonna ask you if you knew when it went in.
Uh,
It had to have been before.
We're thinking the 50s.
Probably. I mean, it had to have been well before there was Conservation or a Wetlands Protection Act.
Yeah,
Well before.
unfortunately,
But not before chapter 91.
Well, no, nothing was got in before Chapter 91.
unfortunately, it's an example of, a good example of where
What not to
riprap
do.
should not be put.
Yep.
But that's what it is, right? It's a beautiful spot. I know you'll enjoy it. Yeah, just like I don't know if you were here when the young man was here for the Eagle Scout, but, it's all part of the process.
Well, the existing well to be abandoned?
May be abandoned, I'm gonna check with the Board of Health. It may be able to be used for, for irrigation, but it probably could be abandoned, probably will be abandoned.
Well, if you're gonna use it for irrigation, ancillary use, a number of people will take a cold drink of water on
That's the problem with
when you're
it.
sprinkling the lawn, or,
Yeah.
you got the hose in your hand, and
That is, they don't like irrigation wells for the same reason, because some kid's gonna come up and take a slug of water, and it's close to the leaching field.
It's not as bad
given the
as
elevation, that leaching field is probably on top
It'll
of the
be on the
well.
profile view
Yeah. All right.
for the health department.
All
yeah.
right.
It's not as bad as the teacher in the Bronx who, 2 kids put rat poison in her water bottle. Did you hear that one?
No.
She's okay, it was just a little bit, they wanted to see what effect it would have.
And I will add to Maria's and Jen's things about jewelweed. When I would go out in the field, I would get jewelweed, and I made a tea out of it. And I would it's frozen, I put it in an ice cube tray.
Oh, and bring it out.
When I put it in plastic bags, or when I come home, wash my hands with those ice cubes.
And it worked.
It works. That's it?
Well, we haven't,
A motion to close and take it under advisement.
I'll second it.
okay, and we'll have that in the record, so we can look at the license.
Yeah, Barbara, you can scan it and send it to me tomorrow.
I can give you this copy. I'll just print out another one. That way there's no,
Okay, over here.
oh, sorry. Lost my phone.
I say, scan it, give it to me tomorrow.
Okay, any further questions on the board? Any questions from the audience? You made a motion?
I made a motion.
Okay. There's a motion and a second on the table to close this hearing and take it under advisement. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous, so moved.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara.
Thank you, Barbara.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Oh. I realized that was related. I never knew her last name. Okay, next item on the agenda is another NOI, Mullen Inc., care of Dean Berry, 267 Clinton Avenue and Clinton Avenue. But this kind of is a fake, right? Because I say Clinton Avenue. Where's the hotel there? But I knew that. I knew Clinton Avenue walked over water. For permission to place approximately 600 yards of clean beach nourishment sand on coastal beach and coastal dune at the Tides Motel to reconstruct and replant coastal dune and construction access area, to annually maintain the beach, including deposition of sand from an upland source or dredge spoils under the town's Inner Harbor Entrance Dredge Project, and the associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping. Jen?
I'll save any of my comments until after Leslie's presentation.
Good evening, Leslie.
All right, hello. For the record, my name is Leslie Fields with the Woods Hole Group, here representing Mullen Inc., the owner of Tides Motel. Jeff Ryder from BSS is also here, did the surveying, prepared the plan, as well as the property manager. So if you have questions for them afterwards, they're here to answer questions. I have the green cards. Can I go to you?
Good, right here.
All right, so this, as you said, is an application for permission to conduct a beach restoration project. The beach is, I don't know if you went out there, hopefully you did, but currently it's covered in gravel and small cobbles. I have some pictures of what the beach looks like now and what it used to look like. So it's recently, I'd say over the last couple of years, become very sand depleted, full of cobbles, full of gravel. Historically, in the past, it has been sandy. You can see some pictures here, and here, where it's a sandy beach. All the others are the present-day condition with a gravel beach. And up until a couple of years ago, when the town dredged the entrance to the inner harbor, they would hydraulically pump the material downdrift, or to the east, to the little town beach right east of the Falmouth Inner Harbor, and that material would also gradually feed Tides Motel and the Yacht Club beaches. Over the last couple of years, the town has been pumping the material updrift to the public beach at Surf Drive to nourish that beach because it was depleted with sand, something that we had recommended as a part of the town's comprehensive permit for dredging and beach nourishment. But one of the, it's been good for Surf Drive, but one of the bad
There's so much sand to go
side
around.
effects is that the downdrift beaches are now really, gravelly and cobbly. So the property owner would really like to get some sand on the beach for his customers before the summer season starts. So that's what this application is all about. The work is going to take place in coastal beach and coastal dune resource areas. We are proposing to put 600 cubic yards of sand on the beach, 560 on the beach, and 40 on the front side of the dune. The design starts right in front of the concrete patio, right here, about 6 inches below the patio, at an elevation of 7 feet above NABD, goes out about 15 feet horizontally, and then slopes down to mean high water at a slope of 6 to 1. We're going to go up a little bit higher in the area where there's a dune, try to put some sand in front of the dune and build up the dune a little bit. The access for the project, we have 2 access points, and that's sort of been a big point of discussion. But what we'd like to do is access the site from the town's parking lot that's right east of the inner harbor. There's some Jersey barriers. I'm going to show you some pictures here. It's not in a good spot to get to from this podium. Here's the Jersey barriers right here. The parking lot's right behind it. So we'd like to come around the town, through the town parking lot with the trucks, and then right over the corner of this dune, right through this hole here. But it's a 10-foot access, so we'll have to come over a little bit of the dune right there. We talked to the contractor about potentially picking up the Jersey barriers. They seem to be sort of attached to the asphalt. And so we thought that that might sort of destabilize them. They wouldn't be as well placed when we're done. We'll be able to put them back as permanently as they are now. So we're talking about going through this opening, as I said, 10-foot wide access to a corner of the dune. We have to go to the selectmen to get a permit for this, and so we're going to be asking the selectmen for permission to do that. We did send a letter to the Waterways Committee because at Greg Frazier's thinking, we might be able to get permission from the Waterways Committee to do it, but they were like, no, better ask the selectmen.
You need a license.
Yeah.
You need a license from the town.
Yep.
And I know we need the license for the project, but just permission to come through this area. We thought maybe the Waterways Committee could give us that permission, but,
No, I don't think they can.
well, they said no, so,
Yeah.
yeah. So, but we're not going to be going before the selectmen until the 2nd. So, in the interest of sort of getting a permit to get this project done before 4th of July, which is when the applicants would like to get this done, the week before 4th of July. We have 2 access points. Preferred access point, again, is right here at the corner of the parking lot. And if the selectmen say no to that, then we will come through the Tides Motel parking lot and up and over the middle of the dune. So just build a little ramp with some sand, trucks will be able to get up and over that, dump the material on the beach, and then the front end loader will spread the material. So this is our preferred access, but if the selectmen say no, then we'd like permission to use this access here. Once we're done with the project, we're going to restore the dune with beach grass planted, I think 2 culms per hole, 12 inches on center. And I think the last thing I wanted to say is that we'd like permission to be able to do this annually, sort of as a maintenance project, if the beach needs it every year before the summer season. So if it's gravelly and cobbly like it is now, we'd like to be able to come back in and do it again, annually. And we'd also like to be able to add this property as a disposal site to the town's dredging and disposal if they decide to dispose on the east side of the inner harbor in the future. And that was something that Greg had asked us to add to the permit, so we're happy to do that. Does that make sense?
I don't think it's necessary, as long as it's identified for beach nourishment. I mean, we can add that it can be a disposal site, that's fine.
Yeah.
I have no problem with that, I mean, I just don't think it's necessary, because if it's already identified for beach nourishment and they're pumping sand on the adjacent beach, then yeah, we can add that, that's no problem.
I think maybe one difference is that this time we're going to be trucking it in, and then if it were to be deposited by the town, it would be hydraulically placed. So that's sort of a difference in methodology.
Yeah, we can add that, that's not a problem.
So that's really all I have, if you have questions.
Okay, Jen, any questions?
I have no questions, I just know the licensing thing, and I would have been very surprised if the Waterways Committee said they could do that.
Yeah.
So I have no problem permitting both access points, and then if you get your license from the Board of Selectmen, and that the contractor feels comfortable going in that area and moving those barriers, it's fine with me.
Okay.
As long as the request to do it annually, I would say that approval from the board, if they wanted to bring in the photos of the area probably, or a site visit or something, that's fine.
I should have said that. So each year before they would do it, they would, as you said, either ask you guys to come down, do a site visit, send some photos, a letter, and say,
This
you
is
know,
our issue.
yeah.
Okay.
Courtney.
Okay, disposal site for trash.
For this year, you're saying that it would either be dredge spoils or from an upland
It's
site?
trucked in
Yeah,
this
trucked
year
in.
from an upland site.
Okay, and what is the upland site?
We've been talking to a guy over in Sandwich. It's the same guy that Tara works with over in East Falmouth at,
PA Linders? Is that, no.
So it's a compatible,
yes, well,
It
it's
would
not
have to
compatible
be-
with what's
I mean,
there.
that would be a
It's not
condition.
compatible with what's there now, but it's compatible with what comes out of the harbor and gets placed there, or has in the past, yes. We can provide some sort of grain size analysis, sieve analysis, if
Okay.
you guys want for the record.
She doesn't want to pay, the Tides Motel doesn't want to pay with what is compatible for that site.
With a cobble and
Yeah,
gravel?
which,
Well, they don't want cobble
that's
and
already
gravel. Yeah,
there.
right, they don't
It's
want that.
actually very well sorted.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
the other question is on the annual replenishment, if necessary. An order typically runs for 3 years, and you can extend it annually for a couple more. We have in the past written orders for 5 years, but, when the order with extensions is out, it's out, and you'd have to come back at that point.
Yeah, I think they understand that, and I'll make sure they understand that. Yeah, that's a good point. Thank you. if you would
I
like
know
to
that's,
issue an order for
we've
5
run
years, that
into
would
this
be great.
before, and that's when that's the way it is.
Yeah,
love
we,
issuing orders for 5 years.
Huh?
We'll discuss that.
We would love an order for 5 years if you'd be willing to grant that.
Oh, I love to throw monkeys
I
into the
know
works.
you do.
Okay, I have no other questions.
We'll discuss that.
The annual maintenance of this would be this, we have a few heavy winter storms, would be the max like you're doing right now, 600 yards. Would you anticipate losing that much in a year?
That's a good question.
In a big storm, they're gonna lose it all.
I mean,
The
yeah.
yacht club did a beach nourishment not too long ago.
I think they did one last year? Last year, yeah. I mean, we could put a cap on the volume, if that's what we wanted, if
No, I
the
just
commission,
wanna-
Yeah, what is it?
600 cubic
600
yards.
600 cubic yards. I don't see why they couldn't access on the lower point. I think a little creative nudge on that Jersey barrier and,
Yeah,
not,
They need the license.
They need to still, no, they
Yeah,
need
we're
the
gonna get the license no matter what.
access
Yeah,
to
yeah,
act-
I
to do it
understand
from
that.
the parking
And
lot.
I know, and if in their divine wisdom they allow that, I think that a little nudge, a little creative
Okay, we'll
manipulation
talk
of
to
that
the
Jersey
contractor.
barrier is fine.
sure,
It would-
all right.
Just go like this.
Yeah, it's not.
We
that
just
big.
wanted them to be able to be sturdy when they went back.
You want one of those Big Mac trucks like I saw today with the big
Absolutely, we can put that
dog
all
on the
up.
front.
It's nice
I'm glad that you said what you did about informing the contractor, and I think that's gonna be important,
Okay,
because I'm gonna give you a little back history on something that happened to me this past week.
okay.
And this is televised, so I want all the eyes that watch this to understand, I'm a volunteer on this board, and I put a lot of effort into it, as do my colleagues and staff. And when discussions are had, like tonight, and we work out things, and that young, starting with Ryson, he learned what the process is. I don't like talking into a balloon and just letting it go into the air. My commitment is genuine. I cannot walk by something. I have taken an oath. It's uncomfortable sometimes for me to have to walk by something and see it and have to address it. If you're gonna cheat, cheat smart. Don't do it right in front of my eyes. And don't be lazy. Understand the orders and conditions, some of them are really hit in detail, and notification to staff is to be done, and other little nuances in the orders are to be understood by the contractors. And unfortunately, that wasn't done. No harm, no foul, and nothing earth-shattering. The volcanoes didn't erupt. But it's the process and what was agreed upon and what should have been done. You know, all's fine with the world. That little hiccup in the road is past. But I really, really, really want to be crystal clear. There's multiple members on this board, and activities that are done by others are noticed. And it's not uncommon for us to get calls. But it's also, just don't do it right in front of my face. Don't expect me to turn my, don't expect me to turn my head and not look at something and address it.
You know what he's talking about, too.
Yes, I am. So,
I don't know what you're talking about, but
it's not meant for you, it's
You don't know
it's
specific,
also.
but you know in general what he's talking about.
I do in general, yes.
I want to be crystal clear on that. That was not just for your edification, that was for the public to hear that. Because on this one, I think that, as you expressed, that you would be communicating to your contractor.
Yeah,
That's much appreciated, and I am taking you at your word for that.
okay. Well,
Thank you.
And it's easy to get to that public parking lot and to see
yeah,
that stuff
it's
is
a
being...
visible site. We're definitely going to be doing it right. We've had the contractor, or a contractor out there already. We have a good relationship with him. If he's the chosen one, then, I mean, we'll be working with the contractor, for sure.
Outstanding.
I'm good.
Thank you, Les.
Mike,
I'm good. No
she's
questions.
not done yet.
No.
I have a question for you.
Okay,
I mean, you'd be disappointed if I didn't ask it.
I would be.
No, my question is,
this is the site, and I thought that what happened is what you said. This is a site where there's a back current, and so if you put stuff on, like the town beach, it drifts down to the yacht club beach and
Yeah,
then to here.
that's the direction of drift in this area, is to the
Yeah,
east. Yeah.
yeah. So my only concern, I don't have a problem, I'd like to have you have a good beach for hope you have lots of people here this summer. Hope it's a good season for you and for them. But how likely is it in a storm? In a storm, things might be a little bit different. How likely is it that this is gonna go back and nourish the bottom of the channel going into the harbor?
Well, first of all, it's a pretty small amount of material. It's only 600 cubic yards. And normally when we have those blows from the southwest that fill up all the entrances along this side of Falmouth, you know, along this shoreline here.
Right.
It's coming from the southwest, the material just keeps on going to the east. So,
That's,
yeah, it's
I mean, that's what
possible
I'm
that some of
thinking.
it could go
In
into
those
the-
conditions, it will probably,
it'll keep going to the east. I mean,
East
that's
or
the
just
dominant direction
offshore.
of drift, yeah. Some of it could land there in the channel, but so is the material they're dredging out and putting on Surf Drive and coming back to the channel, and,
but in the normal drift, you do get a back current there, don't you?
I think that, yeah, you can, yes.
Yeah, I mean, you've shown that in some of the other presentations you did. Okay, everybody have enough?
Motion to close the hearing and take it under advisement.
Second.
Second.
Any questions from the audience? Okay, motion on the table to close this hearing and take it under advisement. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous, so moved.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
2 minutes just to run the map.
Yes. We're going to take a 2-minute break.
And it will not go in my junk file.
License free. After 4:30, after 5:30, Saturday or Sunday. Just what I want to do, go out and do the field program.
Give me a jingle, I'll try to get out there.
Okay, okay. I think, just to go through it. All set?
That's it.
Okay. Everybody ready? Continued request for hearings under a notice of intent. 10. Lack Realty Trust, 7 Swing Lane, for permission to demolish the existing house and construct a single-family 4-bedroom house with attached garage, decks, entry stairways to install a swimming pool, terrace, new Title V sewage disposal system, utilities, landscape walls, drainage, driveway, and the associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping. Jen?
Yes, Madam Chairman, the board continued this project for some additional information and modifications. I will let Mike go through those for you.
Good evening, Mike.
Good evening, Madam Chairman, members of the commission. My name is Michael Borselli from Falmouth Engineering. I represent the applicant. I'm joined tonight by the applicant in the persons of Logan and Lisa Huffman. I'm also joined tonight by Teresa Sprague of Blue Flax Design. What I'd like to do is just summarize the plan revisions that were made and just highlight on the supplemental narrative that I provided to you. Turn it over to Teresa to review changes to her plans. And Mr. Huffman may want to say a few words, and certainly we're all available for questions.
Okay, thanks, Mike.
So we had our initial hearing, and you allowed us to go through all the details of the project at the last meeting, and then we got your feedback, so I have revised plans. And I provided you with a supplemental narrative that I'm going to just briefly touch on some of the highlights of. So first and foremost, I wanted to reiterate that we have a pre-existing condition of a house in a velocity zone, non-complying with any FEMA standards for construction, habitable space in the flood zone, no structural design that meets any of the construction standards. We also have a general neighborhood surrounding it with similar houses. They're all older houses that none of the FEMA standards are contemplated. So the neighborhood is generally at risk to storm events like hurricanes. The existing house is non-compliant because it has habitable space on the ground floor, and then the second level also doesn't have your required 2-foot separation from the lowest beam. So the whole structure could sustain substantial damage or even collapse in a significant storm event like the one that we're required to design for, the 100-year storm event. I was asked to provide a summary of floor areas in the existing house. I've broken those down in the narrative on page 2 of 8. The new work and the proposed work now, I'd like to go through some of the changes that we made and just refresh your memory on what we're doing with the house. So we're proposing to build a completely new house, demolish the existing house. The new house is designed to meet all FEMA standards and your standards in that it will be a concrete pier-supported structure. It will be elevated such that the lowest structural member is designed to be 2 feet above the base flood elevation. There will be panels that are designed to break away. And all of the habitable space is on the upper levels outside of above the elevation of the predicted storm in a 100-year storm event. We've provided to you supplemental plans, cross-sections of the foundation design. As I said, the piers are not timber pilings that are driven. They're designed to be formed and poured in place reinforced concrete. And if you look at the cross sections of the footings and such, you'll see that they're designed in a way that they meet the FEMA standards, but the bottom of the footings are not below groundwater elevations, even the most highest predicted groundwater elevations. So no dewatering is anticipated at all in the construction. The ground floor, the non-habitable space area of the house is proposed to have a concrete slab. The concrete slab is actually integral to the design and the structural system in that it interlocks the piers in together, and it was a part of the structural engineer's design for the overall structural integrity of the house. The concrete slab also prevents dust and dirt and allergens and insect infestation on that ground level. And in addition, the concrete slab also mitigates against any potential scour from wave action if the storm event that is predicted by a 100-year storm were to occur. And that could have the potential to undermine footings. You asked us, and we have now shown on the plan, the location of the proposed air conditioning units. They're elevated on platforms, and they're proposed to be on the back side of the garage in this location. And, because of the design, the considerations for FEMA standards, and in a comparison to the existing structure, we believe that the existing house is a significant improvement over current conditions and in effect actually provides better protection to nearby wetland resources, keeping in mind that the only wetland resource of interest in this case is land subject to coastal storm flowage, and that the next closest resource area is more than 150 feet away on the other south side of Clinton Avenue, and then that is Falmouth Inner Harbor and the associated coastal bank. The roof system on the house has also been designed such that there's no roof leaders, but roof runoff is still contained, and it's contained by the roof runoff sheet flows off the house onto pervious surfaces, including the patio system that Teresa will outline, or crushed stone areas adjacent to all of the roof overhangs. These areas will, in effect, allow for the absorption of the runoff into the ground and will result in the same effect that you concern yourself with, which is absorption either through dry wells or just direct absorption through the ground, and no erosion or runoff from the site. There is one section of paved driveway leading to the garage, and it was on the original plan and it remains on the plan. We've mitigated that with a trench drain at the driveway entrance that pipes to a dry well. I described it before. I'll re-emphasize that there's a failing Title V septic system in this general area. It has a 1,000-gallon septic tank and a leaching pit that is most certainly less than 5 feet to the groundwater table. That will be upgraded and a new septic system will be placed on the north side of the property as far as possible from Falmouth Harbor, and it will conform with Title V and the Town of Falmouth health regulations. There was some significant concern about the pool terrace area and the proposed vertical concrete wall that surrounded the perimeter of the terrace. We reconsidered that after receiving your feedback, and we've eliminated the wall from the design. We've submitted additional information to you, cross sections and such, And the new design includes a very gentle slope from the edge of the terrace that is elevated on average 2 to 2.5 feet above the existing ground. And that slope will slope down gradually at an approximate slope of 6 to 1 back to the lawn surface. That would be vegetated with plant material that's outlined on the Blue Flax design plan. We did an estimate of the fill, and we estimate the volume of fill to be approximately 240 cubic yards. I did not discount, if we want to get technical, the actual volume of pool that could be subtracted, so it would actually be probably less than 200 cubic yards of actual fill material that would be placed around and then sloped off the sides. I think I mentioned in the original presentation, the pool is proposed to be a saltwater pool, and there's a filtration system in the pool equipment associated with that. It's proposed to be in a below-grade concrete vault that's waterproof and watertight with a hatch cover. We consulted with building department, and pool equipment can be below the flood, can be in the flood zone, unlike the air conditioning units. With no chemicals proposed, it will be a saltwater type pool. I originally described in my narrative in my presentation to you at the last hearing, how we conform with your regulations and the DEP regulations. I've now documented that in the narrative. I don't know that I need to bore you with that. I'd be reiterating what I had already said. So, in summary, we made revisions to the plan. I forgot to mention I made revisions. I added the spot elevations that Jen had requested, which helped demonstrate to you that the area is a flat grassy area. We added the existing berm that is under the existing deck. There's an earthen berm under there that's actually taller than the proposed grade that we're proposing here. So in effect, really, we're not really changing the dynamics of the area with regard to wave action. We're actually lowering that berm and we're just pulling it forward slightly so that it'll be a much gentler fill slope that will be vegetated in this area. So the effects of wave action are in effect de minimis in my opinion. We've added the pool equipment, we've shown where the air conditioners are, we've eliminated the vertical stone wall. We've added additional details and cross-sections to the application package, both the architectural details of the foundation and such, and the cross-sections and details on the Blue Flax design plans. We've provided with tabulation of the floor areas. Teresa will provide more information about the pool terrace material. So I believe all in all that we've done our best to conform with your regulations, and the proposed project will vastly improve the potential for storm damage from hurricanes, which is a net improvement over current conditions, and it really starts to contribute to a new term that I learned here, actually, coastal resiliency. It's a way to try to provide and think about the future and try to be more resilient when you're in velocity zones. So with that being said, I'd like to turn it over to Teresa, and then maybe we'll wait for questions, or maybe Logan would like to talk, and then we're available for questions.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Teresa, good evening.
Good evening. For the record, Teresa Sprague, Blue Flax Design. I'll keep it very brief. We made no changes at all to the planting plan. We simply provided the cross-sections that you had asked for, shown on the bottom, and you can see section AA sort of cuts through here, and then EB cuts this way. AA shows dotted line, the existing grade, solid line, the proposed grade, and then the same thing through here, existing grade 6 plus or minus, and then the proposed grade at elevation 8. As far as the terrace materials, I know there are some questions about what we were proposing. We provided some photographs just to illustrate what we're proposing is basically lawn, turf, fescue lawn with stepping stones placed through around the pool area. And then as you move more towards the sides of the house and more towards the house, there would be more lawn. So the stepping stones are basically just to provide some footing around the pool area. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions about the plan.
Okay, thanks, Teresa. Sir, would you like to say something now? And then we'll open it for questions.
I think maybe, questions. The number one thing is if there's...
Well,
Oh, if you're
yeah,
gonna-
if you're going to say anything, you have to come up here.
Logan Huffman, proponent, Black Lac Realty Trust. I'm surprised nobody's asked what Black Lac stands for.
Oh, we looked it up.
You what?
We looked it up.
You looked it up?
Mhm.
Black
Oh, well,
Lac?
I don't know what it stands for. What's it stand for?
It's our dog, Bob, then Amanda, Katrina, Kelly, and Austin.
All your
Lisa
dogs?
and Logan. It's just our first initial.
Oh.
I really don't think that's the definition you look.
There was a weak
No,
moment
no.
that I had. The only comments is just if I can answer any questions or anything. I was listening to your, comments earlier tonight as far as, following through on orders and things of that nature. And needless to say, this is, real close to my heart because it's our home. I'm also, I guess I am the contractor in this situation. I've been building in Eastern Mass since 1989. I've built approaching 500 homes in Eastern Mass. I've done everything from, turtle barrier restoration to building bike paths for communities to, building a lot of homes, and I've dealt with a lot of conservation commissions, and I can happily say today that if you Google me, you're not going to run into anything, crazy out there. So I know how the process works. I know how important it is and all. And, I have tripped a few times through the years, but I have learned from those. So we know how, things go as far as that. So that's really it. But if there's any questions or anything, I'm happy to answer.
Okay, thanks. Jen?
Yes, Mike, what is the square foot difference between if I'm looking at the footprint of the old house and the footprint of the new house and not breaking it down by habitable space as you have in narrative? What is the square foot difference between the two structures?
I can give you that answer. If you look at sheet 1 of 3, existing conditions, lot coverage by existing structures is
268
2628. And if you look at
proposed,
yep,
okay. So,
3,570.
okay, so about,
I didn't
900 square foot.
About 1,000. It's about 1,000 square feet.
940, I get.
Okay.
About 1,000.
Yeah.
About, yeah, okay, you're good. The reason I asked that is, you opened this door. I would be very careful tossing around the new buzzword of coastal resiliency when you are increasing a structure within the velocity zone. It is no secret how the staff feels about structures within the velocity zone. So I just want you to be careful when we're adding a pool, when we're increasing a structure by 1,000 square feet. I would be
careful saying this complies with the town's vision of coastal resiliency, because I don't see how this does. That said, I appreciate all the information you guys gave me. The spark rates were great. Thank you for the terrace, the detail on the terrace, what I had asked for, it's much clearer to me. And the board will just have to determine whether or not, the breakaway panels, I know Mike, Teresa, we discussed, are still on the table, and, staff just cannot support that portion of the project. That said, I don't have any other questions regarding it. Mike, did you say, I was doing some calculations, did you say how much fill you were bringing in?
Yeah, I said, I estimated it at about 240,
Okay.
but I didn't discount the actual pool volume. So it would probably be slightly less than 200 cubic yards if you deduct out the fact that there's a void of, where there wouldn't be fill because of the pool, it would be water. So, just for your information, technically it's...
Okay. Yeah. Okay, I know all the information was provided that the staff had asked for.
Yep. Cory?
I know you're trying, obviously, you're making this structure compliant with the current flood regulations. The reality is that our current regulations perhaps are a little bit behind the times based on a lot of research that's being done now. I could send you a link to an interactive flood map that shows Cape Cod and Falmouth, and they're anticipating a 4-foot sea level rise by the end of the century, and perhaps 65% of that, a 65% chance of a 4-foot rise by 2050. So, you know, this is real, whether we happen to agree with the causes of sea level rise or not. It's a real thing that's going to happen, and you know, engineers like yourself need to be very mindful of this, regardless of what our regulations say. You're not, you know, and this comes to, I appreciate, for example, that stone wall is gone. You're doing a gradual slope. But like Jen, I have a real issue with these breakaway panels. And I also, my other concern is, and I know I brought it up 2 weeks ago when you were here, was that I was okay with a slab where your garage is going to go, but the rest was to be stone. But I was just looking at this, and it still shows a slab.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that all should be stone. I think, I understand the aesthetic issues with breakaway panels and or lack of it. Particularly where, you know, you're not right on top of, like, it's not like Surf Drive, where it's pretty kind of obvious that you better allow for things to flow through, that you're inland a little bit, and so you're not within 100 feet of a resource area, but you are within flood. And yes, the existing houses in the area aren't elevated, or they don't have, you know, so to not have breakaway panels, you know, creates a design challenge. But as I said last week, or 2 weeks ago, you can certainly mitigate for that with your plantings around the building to kind of soften the fact that you've got the space. So I'm not sure I buy into the fact that this is an unmitigated hardship or an aesthetic nightmare to eliminate the breakaway panels. Other than that, you know, I'm fine with your project. I think you've given a lot of thought to it. You know, you're making it compliant. You know, you may want to think in terms of that 4-foot sea level rise as opposed to the 2. You know, it may, because if we go 4 feet, it may be that you'll these folks will have to have a new driveway because Clinton Avenue will be lobster area. So, that said, I have no other questions.
Then they can have a boathouse.
Yeah. Instead of a pool, they'll have a beach in the front.
Mike, is there a drywall detail on the plan?
For the roof runoff?
Yeah. For, you
No
have,
drywall, that's not for the roof.
I said like French drains, trenches.
but, you have a drywall on here for the,
Oh, yes, there is.
For the
On
driveway.
page 3, on page 3,
have three. Cool. Okay.
on page 3, there's a typical drywall detail.
Okay, and do you, on page 3, which I unfortunately I don't have right here in front of me, do you have a cross-section of what the drainage area around the roof line is gonna be?
I don't, but I could certainly provide that, and
I
I
think
would
that
think you
would
could
be-
make a condition to provide that.
I think that would be helpful.
If I could just interject, the idea is to make it a pervious patio, and there's a very specific design, and if you want a cross-section of that, because that's where the water would go and hit. I'm happy to provide that. I don't have it right now.
Those, done correctly, they really are a nice, you know, I'm not a big fan of downspouts, but
I'm thinking, is that what they did at Seacrest?
they might have in one
They have-
portion of that.
What?
Seacrest had some things like that, like
Drainage
Mike's
areas
talking
off
about
the roof
drainage
line.
areas off the roof
So
that
that-
went in,
Oh, into the patio.
into the patio.
Middle of the thing,
Yeah,
yes, they did.
and they look great.
Yeah, because the gutters and downspouts, if they're not maintained, can end up never even going to the drywall.
So, now, I did not go through the big plans. I read in the description about the panels, and I appreciate that. That was, I think you described it well. But is there any elevation showing the breakaway panels in the plans? I didn't go through the big set that I received, but
They're all shown on the elevation.
they're shown on the elevations, and the anchoring point is on the bottom. That's,
That's okay. I mean, honestly, where we are now is the final, 100% of what they are. I mean, we're looking to comply with FEMA, IBC, IRC, and all of those things. I've spent a lot of time in the last month on the FEMA websites and surfing all over the planet, with this whole thing.
just so you know, you're preaching to the choir. I am not opposed to the breakaway panels.
Well,
I just want people to understand, my only thing that, I wish there was a better way to describe it. I hate the term breakaway panel because it gives this illusion that this all of a sudden becomes the flotsam and jetsam and ends up over in the harbor. You know,
well,
their function
in
is to just-
reality, I mean, if in FEMA regulations and explanations, I mean, they literally use the term fail, because that's what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to fail. And, what happens is, I had said at the last meeting, kind of, loosely, but it's true, it's just like your anchor road. They're built with materials, you understand, I think you're in construction.
Correct.
These things will be as solid as anything out there. There won't be a conventional framed wall. They'll be, laminated and when they fail, I won't get into debate, about the big one and stuff like that, but if, they'll stay with the structure. They won't go anywhere. And, I understand, I think I understand, the board's goals and, kind of your mandate and things. But I implore you to aesthetics need to be considered as well. God forbid, I'll be honest, I don't want to go to the Belvedere Plains Homeowners Association meeting that happens a couple times a year. I don't want to go to that and have to see those people with that house, because I can tell you what, there will be a firestorm in the town of Falmouth. You know, if that thing's up on stilts. I know you don't have to care about that. I understand, you know, your board's concerns about them. I truly do. But I think as someone had said earlier, you know, we're not right on the beach. We're not in a dune. We're not in an area that's, you know, it's subject to, you know, wave action and things moving back and forth and all. So that's all. I hope I answered your question.
Yes, you
Do you have any other question?
No, thank you.
Question?
No, just a comment. Mike, thank you. If you give us, you know, the first time, you know what I'm saying? This is like the meat and potatoes. This is the icing here, you know what I'm saying? We could have been moving this along a little further.
Appreciate that.
All right, thank you.
You know what happened? It was a full moon. He was preparing them.
Oh, it's great.
Mike?
Well, this is the day for soliloquies, so I guess I'll jump on. The narrative, to me, is experience. Three reasons. It's what to look for. You go out on the site, and you really don't have a good description of what you're looking at. You don't know what to look for. You come back, and nobody likes surprises, at least I don't. Two, if it's not written, it doesn't exist. We have a document that's going to go forward. Months, years later, people are going to come back, and you want to be able to document how decisions were made. What were people thinking, for better or for worse? And the last one I think is most important is fairness. It's not fair to an applicant to have the banter back and forth. It's stressful. It's stressful for the owner. It's stressful for the town. It's just stressful. It's not fair to this board. We take a fair amount of heat for being bad guys. That we cause people money. We delay projects. And when we do that because of our stupidity, it's okay. I don't like it when we do it for other people's stupidity. I guess is part of the answer. And with that said, you know, for the most part, I think that the engineers in town do a good job. We've had a series of full moons, as Betsy says, where odd things have slipped through the cracks. But for you and the other engineers, I think most of the I get the plans. I have no problems, and I'd just like to see that move forward. And I have no problems with this project.
Thank you.
So would you like to propose a motion?
I make a motion to take it under consideration.
Close it and take it under consideration.
Yeah.
Second.
Any further comments?
One request. When the applicant puts the pool in, I'd love to see I'd love to look at where the pool equipment's going. I'd really be interested in seeing how that works out. That's just.
A new idea, new system?
Yeah, just to have, just something, to have a.
Where I come from, come on over and help.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, there's a motion.
You probably will, though.
Motion and second on the table to close the hearing and take it under advisement. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous, so moved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Seemed like a long night. Are we gonna do all
Do I
these
get paid
next
overtime
Wednesday
tonight?
morning? Do you get paid, yeah, you
Overtime
do, you get
after 9 o'clock?
triple.
Triple, good, I like it.
Wow.
Are we,
Jen, are we doing any orders? Jen?
Good.
We can do 49 in Loomis, or we can do them next week, and I'll write them up and issue them next. We can do them next Wednesday if you want.
We're off next Wednesday, I thought.
Wednesday,
You
7
are,
a.m.
but Mario couldn't
Do we have
attend
enough time
this
to do the
evening's
whole,
hearing.
from 7 to,
7 a.m.?
yeah.
Do we have enough time to,
To do all these plus tonight, or no?
we don't have to do tonight. We don't have to do those for 2 weeks.
Okay.
No, we can do next Wednesday. We can do next Wednesday at 7. Can you be here at 7, Mike?
Of course.
You know,
7
Russ
o'clock?
is
No
bringing,
problem.
Russ is bringing the coffee and
Then I'll let Mario
Is
know
it-
he has to be here at 7.
Is that, am I required on
You're
these?
not required.
You
Okay.
bring coffee, I'll
Let
bring
me just double
that.
check. If I
that too.
have
Pardon
Mike,
me?
Mario, Russ, and Betsy, no, you're not required.
If you need, just call.
Okay, and Courtney, if you want to come,
so
You
it's
can.
South, you,
for 2.
the 4 of us would be enough for Southview Way and Loomis
Oh,
Lane
yeah,
as well?
absolutely.
All right.
Yeah, so we'll do them all next, on Wednesday. I'll set a meeting Wednesday morning, 7 a.m.
Okay, Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn, however, before we take a vote on it, I'd like to just express something, because I am able to, starting with EMS and Cape Cod Healthcare Network, we are very fortunate to have a stellar medical facility in our community, not just in Falmouth Hospital, but in Cape Cod Hospital as well. Last week, I was not here because of family members and things, and best case scenario, everything turned out absolutely fabulous, and I'm a very blessed man that way. But from literally the doorstep out, I would like to thank all the responders and everybody, the volunteers at the hospital, and every single person that we met was just absolutely top-notch professional, and we are extremely fortunate to have such an asset in our community. We're very, very fortunate.
We are, and I hope none of us have to use it at any time soon.
So my motion to adjourn.
Second?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, unanimous, so moved.